Chapter 162. The High Priest and the Blood Moon Infanta were about to kill Ji Tianxing on the spot. At this critical moment, a black light burst out of Ji Tianxing's body. The black light contained the aura of death and was very mysterious. It formed a huge black hole and enveloped the High Priest and the Blood Moon Infanta. Their attacks were blocked by the mysterious black hole. The black hole released a strong devouring power and quickly devoured their cultivation. The High Priest and the Blood Moon Infanta were stunned. When they saw the mysterious black hole appear again, they were frightened. "Damn bastard! It's this black hole again," the Blood Moon Infanta cursed in fear. She obviously hadn't forgotten the fear of having 60% of her cultivation devoured last time. That ancient aura appeared again. It's really similar to the aura of the heavenly star bead. Although the High Priest's face was full of fear, he felt the ancient aura in the black hole again and became excited. In just a few breaths, the Blood Moon Infanta and the High Priest's cultivation was devoured. They struggled with all their might and tried to break free from the black hole. Ji Tianxing looked at the black hole in front of him and then looked at the High Priest and the Blood Moon Infanta, who were unable to move. He was also shocked and in disbelief. When the mysterious black hole appeared in the past, it was when he was unconscious. He didn't see it with his own eyes. He only heard from Qian Yu that the mysterious black hole was very terrifying. It devoured all of Qian Yu's cultivation and turned it from the size of a small mountain to the size of a small cat. At this moment, Ji Tianxing saw the mysterious black hole with his own eyes. How could he not be shocked? Finally, he managed to escape from death. Only then did his hanging heart relax, and he secretly thanked himself for his luck. After another 3 breaths, 50% of the High Priest and the Blood Moon Infanta's cultivation was devoured. If this continued, their cultivation level would drop and they wouldn't be able to recover even if they cultivated for half a year. At this moment, the High Priest used a secret demonic technique to escape from the black hole. "Demonic explosion," he shouted in a low voice and threw the black snake whip into the black hole reluctantly. He waved his hands and released black light and demonic energy to use the secret technique. Under his control, the black snake whip exploded in the black hole with a loud bang. Amidst an earth-shattering boom, the black snake whip transformed into a dazzling crimson light, bursting with an unparalleled force. Boom! The explosion of the black snake whip temporarily blocked the devouring of the black hole. At that moment, the High Priest and the Blood Moon Infanta seized the opportunity to escape from the black hole and quickly retreated into the distance. The two of them stood 30 meters away, still in shock. They stared at the mysterious black hole with complicated expressions. The High Priest sacrificed a black snake whip. His face was twisted with anger, and his heart ached to the extreme. "Damn it! The artifact that I used 30 years of blood essence to nurture is gone just like that." The Blood Moon Infanta also gritted her teeth and cursed angrily, "Damned reptile, it actually swallowed another 50% of the power I just recovered." This was the second time her cultivation had been devoured by the mysterious black hole. She was even more aware of how terrifying that mysterious black hole was. She had no room to resist at all. At the same time, the mysterious black hole suddenly disappeared. Ji Tianxing came to his senses, turned around, and fled into the distance without hesitation. The High Priest and the Blood Moon Infanta immediately turned into black fog and chased after Ji Tianxing as fast as lightning. The two of them were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they rushed to within 10 meters of Ji Tianxing and were about to launch an attack with a secret technique. At this moment, Yun Yarrow had already used her power to suppress her injuries. She rushed out of the forest and came to Ji Tianxing's side. She took out the Xuanji pagoda and used a secret technique to control it. It released a dazzling golden light, forming a golden light shield that enveloped her and Ji Tianxing. "Junior brother Tianxing, let's go," Yun Yarrow shouted in a low voice. She controlled the Xuanji pagoda to release a powerful and mysterious force. She took Ji Tianxing and flew into the sky. Swoosh! The golden light shield of the Xuanji pagoda enveloped her and Ji Tianxing. They flew out of the forest and toward the distant sky in an instant. In just a few breaths, the Xuanji pagoda took them across the mountains and valleys and disappeared into the gloomy sky. The high priest and the blood moon infanta were unwilling to give up. They chased with all their might for a while, but they couldn't catch up. They had no choice but to give up the chase. The two of them cursed furiously before they turned around and returned to the demon cave. Swoosh! The golden light shield of the Xuanji pagoda was like a shooting star that streaked across the night sky. It brought Ji Tianxing and Yun Yarrow and landed on a mountain peak. After the two of them landed on the ground, the golden light shield of the Xuanji pagoda disappeared. It became dim and shrunk to the size of a palm. Yun Yarrow's injuries were extremely severe. When she controlled the Xuanji pagoda just now, she finally used up the last trace of vital essence in her body. After her feet landed on the ground, her body went limp and she fell into a coma on the grass. Senior sister, what happened to you? Ji Tianxing hurriedly held her in his arms and called out to her worriedly. However, Yun Yarrow's eyes were tightly shut. She was severely injured and unconscious. She was completely unconscious. Ji Tianxing hurriedly took out a healing elixir from his 100 treasures brocade pouch and gently placed it in her mouth. He then pressed his palm against Yun Yarrow's palm and transferred his vital essence into her body to help her refine the elixir. After doing all this, he could only pray silently that nothing would happen to Yun Yarrow. He hoped that she would wake up as soon as possible. He raised his head and looked at the sky. It was the darkest moment before dawn. It's going to be dawn soon. I have to bring senior sister and leave this place as soon as possible. Otherwise, we'll be dead if the demons come after us. At the thought of this, he hurriedly carried Yun Yarrow on his back and shuttled through the forest on the mountain peak to find the whereabouts of the spirit crane. He clearly remembered that Yun Yarrow and Bai Wuchen had left the spirit crane and the silver moon wolf on this mountain peak. The silver moon wolf might have been ridden away by Bai Wuchen, but the spirit crane might still be here. However, after searching around the mountain peak, he still couldn't find the spirit crane. The spirit crane must have flown away long ago, right? Even if I have to run on my feet, I'll carry senior sister back to the sect. Ji Tianxing made up his mind. He carried Yun Yarrow on his back and ran wildly through the forest, heading back in the direction of the Sky Pillar sect. Not long after, the darkness between heaven and earth dissipated, and a trace of white appeared on the horizon. A new day had arrived, and the sun was about to rise. Although Yun Yarrow wasn't seriously injured, Ji Tianxing was also seriously injured. He didn't have much vital essence left in his body. He carried Yun Yarrow and ran wildly over the mountains. He was still panting from exhaustion, and his vision was blurry. However, he gritted his teeth and persevered. He refused to stop even if he was drenched in sweat. He continued to run through the forest. It wasn't until 2 hours later that he had crossed several mountains and was far away from the Devil's Cave that he stopped to rest for a while. He ate 2 spirit fruits that could recover his vital essence. Only then did he regain some strength. Then, he carried Yun Yarrow on his back and continued to run. From the time he met Yun Yarrow until now, he had never been so close to Yun Yarrow. Yun Yarrow was lying on his back, unconscious. Her body was pressed tightly against his. He could clearly feel Yun Yarrow's graceful figure and smell the natural fragrance emitted from her body. This made him feel a strange feeling in his heart. He thought to himself, other than me, I'm afraid no one else has been so close to Yun Yarrow, right? Soon, another 2 hours had passed, and the sun had risen to the sky. Ji Tianxing was running through the vast mountain range. He climbed over a mountain that was thousands of feet high. When he reached the foot of the mountain, he met 2 young men in white robes on a grassland. The 2 young men had imposing appearances. Their white robes were of the same style, and they carried swords on their backs. They exuded the confidence and arrogance unique to sect disciples. Chapter 163. 2 young men blocked Ji Tianxing's path, sizing up Ji Tianxing with playful eyes. Ji Tianxing furrowed his brows with an indifferent expression. After sizing up the 2 young men, he was about to take a detour and leave. However, the 2 young men stopped him from both sides with mocking sneers on their faces. Oh, is this kid a disciple of the sky-bearing sect? This kid is wearing a green robe, so he should be an external disciple of the sky-bearing sect. What a coincidence, we actually met a disciple of the sky-bearing sect here. Heh, Look at this kid carrying a female disciple. Oh, what a beautiful female disciple. Unfortunately, she is seriously injured and unconscious. Kid, you are so lucky to be carrying a female disciple on your back in such a hurry. Are you in a hurry to find a place to consummate your marriage? The two young men in white robes echoed each other and mocked Ji Tianxing in a vulgar tone and expression. Ji Tianxing was very anxious and only wanted to take Yun Yarrow back to the sect to heal her injuries as soon as possible. Being blocked by two young men in white robes for no reason and being ridiculed unscrupulously by the two young men in white robes, he became furious and his expression became gloomy. I don't care who you are. Good dogs don't block the way. Get out of my way right now. Ji Tianxing yelled angrily in a cold tone and rushed forward with Yun Yarrow on his back. The two young men in white robes changed their expressions abruptly, revealing a furious expression. Heh, you are very arrogant. You are really reckless. A mere external disciple of the sky-bearing sect dares to talk to us like this. The people of the sky-bearing sect are becoming more and more arrogant. The two young men sneered and pulled out the swords on their backs, blocking Ji Tianxing with their swords. Kid, it looks like you are a newcomer, right? You don't even know the people of our Tianjian sect. We are the internal disciples of the Green Mountain sect. How dare you insult us? If we don't teach you a lesson today, others will think that our Tianjian sect is afraid of your sky-bearing sect. The two young men in white robes were angry. After reporting their identities, they approached Ji Tianxing with their swords, ready to attack. Ji Tianxing's face immediately turned cold, and his eyes were filled with anger. Looks like the two of you are really looking for trouble. Although he didn't know why the other party was hostile to the Sky Pillar sect's disciples, he didn't know why. However, the other party clearly had ill intentions and was deliberately targeting and making things difficult for him. Naturally, he would not tolerate it. He gently placed the unconscious Yun Yarrow on the grass. With the black dragon sword in his hand, he walked towards the two disciples of the Tianjian sect. Seeing his reaction, the two Tianjian sect disciples sneered with disdain. The people of the Sky Pillar sect are indeed very arrogant. A mere outer sect disciple dares to be arrogant. Brat, your sky-bearing sect only controls the heavenly stellar region because of your reputation as a 1,000-year-old sect. It won't be long before our Tianjian sect replaces you. Today, we will teach you an unforgettable lesson. Brat, remember that you have to avoid the people of the Tianjian sect when you see them. As soon as they finished speaking, the two disciples of the Tianjian sect waved their swords at the same time, sending out a few sword lights that flashed with cold light, attacking Ji Tianxing from both sides. Seeing the two unsheathing their swords, Ji Tianxing realized what was going on. The strength of these two inner sect disciples of the Tianjian sect was at most at the third level of the metaphysical realm. With a disdainful sneer, he pulled out the black dragon sword with a clang and swung it horizontally. Swish! The black dragon sword turned into a 3-meter-long snow-white sword light, exuding an extremely sharp and domineering energy, sweeping toward the two disciples of the Tianjian sect. As the snow-white sword light lit up, a translucent shadow of a flood dragon soared into the sky, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Bang bang! With a dull sound, the sword lights of the two disciples of the Tianjian sect were instantly smashed into pieces by the black dragon sword. The violent power of the black dragon sword, the huge and frightening snow-white sword light, and the soaring flood dragon shadow immediately frightened the two disciples, causing them to retreat in panic. However, the black dragon sword was too fast. By the time they realized that something was wrong, it was already too late for them to retreat. With two dull bang-bang sounds, the two disciples of the Tianjian sect were hit by the sword light. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and flew backward, smashing into the grass 10 meters away. The two disciples rolled several times in the grass before stopping. They lay on the ground, trembling like sifting chaff, and their faces were pale. Dark red blood gushed out of their mouths and dripped onto their white robes. It was a ghastly sight under the sunlight. The two disciples lowered their heads and looked at their abdomens in disbelief. They saw that there was a deep sword wound on their abdomens, and blood was constantly gushing out of the wound. The black dragon sword had cut open a crack in the mystic-grade armor that they were wearing, and the armor was almost scrapped. Neither of them had expected this result, and it filled their hearts with horror. They couldn't believe that an outer sect disciple of the Sky Pillar sect had such terrifying strength that he could seriously injure them with a single sword strike. If it weren't for the protection of their mystic-grade armor, they would have been cut in half at the waist. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Ji Tianqing gripped the black dragon sword and walked over with a cold expression. His feet made soft sounds as he stepped on the soft grass. His face was ice-cold, and his whole body was filled with a strong chill and killing intent. The two disciples of the Tianjian sect sat on the grass dejectedly. They looked at him approaching step by step with frightened and panicked expressions. "Brat, what do you want to do? Don't tell me you dare to kill us. We are inner sect disciples of the Tianjian sect. If you dare to kill us, our sect will definitely crusade against the Sky Pillar sect and seek justice for us." Obviously, the two of them had lost their fighting spirit after being defeated by Ji Tianqing with a single sword strike. Their hearts were filled with fear. They were in the remote wilderness. If Ji Tianqing really killed them, they would have died in vain. However, Ji Tianqing walked up to them and didn't immediately kill them. He looked down at the two of them with a disdainful sneer on his face. "Hehe, I thought the disciples of the Tianjian sect were so outstanding and brave. I didn't expect that two inner sect disciples couldn't even take a single sword strike from me. From this, it can be seen how unbearable the Tianjian sect is. You're simply trash. You two trash kept saying that you wanted to teach me a lesson. What about now? I'll give you a chance to live. Kneel down and admit your wrongs." Ji Tianqing stood with his sword in hand and shouted coldly with a stern expression. The two Tianjian sect disciples were immediately enraged and were about to draw their swords to counterattack. However, Ji Tianqing casually slashed out with his sword and sent the two of them flying again. Their injuries were even more serious, and they lay on the grass vomiting blood. "Kneel down and apologize, or die," Ji Tianqing shouted coldly, his eyes surging with murderous intent. The two Tianjian sect disciples were completely shocked by him. They didn't know Ji Tianqing and didn't understand his nature. Just by looking at Ji Tianqing's posture, the two of them had no doubt that if they dared to resist, only death would await them. After hesitating for a moment, the two Tianjian sect disciples could only endure the humiliation and kneel on the ground to apologize to Ji Tianqing under the threat of death. "We were blind and shouldn't have offended Your Excellency. Your Excellency, please be magnanimous and spare our lives." Ji Tianqing watched the two of them endure the humiliation and kneel down to apologize. He sneered contemptuously and said, "Hey, you two are so greedy for life and afraid of death. In order to survive, you actually kneel down and beg for mercy. You two are cowardly trash who are greedy for life and afraid of death. How dare you call yourself a Tianjian sect disciple? How dare the Tianjian sect take in trash like you?" The two Tianjian sect disciples were so angry that they vomited blood. Their faces were ashen, and their bodies were trembling. If they didn't kneel down and apologize, Ji Tianqing would have killed them on the spot. Now that they had kneeled down and apologized, they were humiliated by Ji Tianqing. The two of them were full of regret. If they had known this would happen, they would have fought to the death. The 6th update has arrived. Please collect and recommend tickets. Thank you brothers for your generous rewards. Chapter 164. Since the two Tianjian sect disciples had already knelt down and apologized, Ji Tianqing didn't make things difficult for them. He put away the black dragon sword and returned to Yun Yaro's side. Then, he turned around and left with the unconscious Yun Yaro on his back. The two Tianjian sect disciples were filled with shame and resentment. They coldly stared at his back as he left. They couldn't help but say a few harsh words to Ji Tianqing, as if they were trying to regain some of their lost dignity. "Brat, don't be complacent. There will be plenty of time in the future. One day, I will personally wash away today's shame. In next month's Dragon Mountain tournament, our sect's disciples will definitely trample your Sky Pillar sect under our feet. Even if we aren't your match, our Tianjian sect will never lower our heads to your Sky Pillar sect." Ji Tianqing's footsteps paused as he frowned in confusion. "Next month. Dragon Mountain tournament. Is it a competition between our sect and the Tianjian sect?" He had never heard of this matter and didn't know what kind of grudges there were between the Sky Pillar sect and the Tianjian sect. However, he didn't ask the two Tianjian sect disciples. He silently kept this matter in mind and quickly left. After all, he didn't want to waste time on such trivial matters. He just wanted to take Yun Yarrow back to the sect as soon as possible to heal her injuries. 4 hours later, it was already noon. The scorching sun in the sky was like a fire, and the air in the mountains was a bit hot. Ji Tianxing had been running for 4 hours without stopping. During this time, he had been attacked by demonic beasts several times, and his life had been in danger several times. Fortunately, he had the black dragon sword in his hand. Every time, he was able to turn danger into safety. He used the black dragon sword to kill or repel the demonic beasts that attacked him. Now, Ji Tianxing had run for 400 miles. He was exhausted and covered in sweat. His physical strength had been greatly consumed. When he passed by the peak of a mountain, he had no choice but to rest in the woods for a while. Then, he took out a pill and took it. Not long after he swallowed the pill, a series of muffled footsteps came from the mountainside, as if a huge beast was running in the mountain. Ji Tianxing's expression immediately changed. His eyes became solemn, and he clenched the black dragon sword in his hand. Could it be that another demonic beast has smelled the scent of blood and is coming to attack me? He listened for a while and heard that there was more than one set of footsteps coming from halfway up the mountain. There are actually 3 demonic beasts, and they are rushing towards the mountain peak. After Ji Tianxing figured out the situation, he immediately carried the unconscious Yun Yarrow on his back, turned around, and fled to the side. However, the heavy footsteps were getting closer and closer. Even though he was running with all his might, his speed was still not as fast as the 3 demonic beasts. After a few dozen breaths, 3 giant beasts of different colors rushed to the top of the mountain as fast as the wind. Ji Tianxing didn't have time to look back at the appearance of the 3 giant beasts. He gritted his teeth and ran as fast as he could. But at this moment, a shout full of anxiety and worry came from behind him. Ji Tianxing, is that you? Stop. Suddenly hearing this familiar voice, Ji Tianxing was stunned for a moment and hurriedly stopped in his tracks. He looked back and found that the 3 giant beasts rushing to the top of the mountain were actually spirit beasts ridden by people. The leading spirit beast was the silver moon wolf, and the person riding on its back was Bai Wuchen. He was the one who shouted just now. The 2 spirit beasts beside the silver moon wolf were the 2 jade white lions raised by the Sky Pillar sect. The 2 people riding the jade white lions were old men in purple robes. They were the 2 elders of the Sky Pillar sect. One of them was the owner of the mysterious treasure pagoda, the 2nd elder. The other kind-looking old man was the spirit medicine elder of the spirit medicine hall. Ji Tianxing immediately understood that Bai Wuchen had returned to the sect to get reinforcements to save him and Yun Yarrow. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief and relax his mind. At this moment, Bai Wuchen and the 2 elders rode their spirit beasts and rushed in front of him like a gust of wind. Seeing that he was carrying Yun Yarrow on his back and Yun Yarrow's clothes were stained with blood and she was unconscious, everyone was shocked. Ji Tianxing, what happened to eldest senior sister? Why is she unconscious? Bai Wuchen was the most anxious. He quickly jumped down from the silver moon wolf and rushed to Ji Tianxing's side to check on Yun Yarrow's injuries. The 2 elders also walked over quickly and checked on Yun Yarrow's condition with worried faces. Ji Tianxing nodded to the 2 elders as a greeting. Then, the spirit medicine elder checked on Yun Yarrow's injuries and used his cultivation to help her suppress her injuries. He didn't want her injuries to drag on for too long and damage her cultivation base. Since the 2nd elder and Bai Wuchen couldn't help, they asked Ji Tianxing about what happened earlier. Ji Tianxing briefly told them about how Yun Yarrow saved him and how the 2 of them worked together to escape from the Devil's Cave. Of course, he didn't tell them about the mysterious black hole. When Bai Wuchen heard that Yun Yarrow was seriously injured and unconscious in order to save him, he was instantly filled with anger. He glared at Ji Tianxing angrily and shouted in a reproachful tone, "Ji Tianxing, eldest senior sister is precious. She's the future successor of the sect leader. How could you let her be so seriously injured? How could you bear to do that? If I were you, I would definitely help eldest senior sister. I'd rather be seriously injured myself. In fact, even if Ji Tianxing was killed by the Devil Clan, Bai Wuchen wouldn't have the slightest bit of pity. He would even be secretly delighted. However, the result was that Yun Yarrow was seriously injured and unconscious. This made him extremely worried, and at the same time, he hated Ji Tianxing to the core. Ji Tianxing's face darkened when he was reprimanded by Bai Wuchen in front of the second elder. He glanced at Bai Wuchen and sneered. Even so, I'll live and die with eldest senior sister. We'll advance and retreat together. We'll never back down. Unlike some people who claim that they're calling for reinforcements, but in reality, they're just running away from the battle. They're as timid as a mouse. Bai Wuchen's face turned ashen when he heard that. He was furious and was about to explode. However, the second elder frowned and said in a dignified tone, "Wuchen, don't be reckless. Ji Tianxing is an outer sect disciple. With his true energy realm strength, it's already very lucky that he could join hands with Yun Yarrow to escape from the Devil's Cave. Moreover, he's already carried Yun Yarrow for more than 400 miles. He needs to rest now. In short, the three of you have completed the mission perfectly. You're all meritorious people. When you return to the sect master will definitely reward you." With the second elder's intervention, Bai Wuchen could only give up and suppress his anger. 15 minutes later, the spiritual medicine elder temporarily helped Yun Yarrow suppress her injuries. Everyone rode on their spirit beasts and left the mountain peak, returning to the Sky Pillar sect. The speed of the spirit beasts was naturally several times faster than Ji Tianxing's. 3 hours later, everyone returned to the Sky Pillar sect. After returning to the sect, the spiritual medicine elder brought Yun Yarrow to the spiritual medicine hall to treat her injuries. Ji Tianxing was about to return to the Wind Cloud courtyard when the second elder stopped him. "Ji Tianxing, the sect master has instructed that after you return to the sect, follow me to the Sky Pillar Palace to meet the sect master. He wants to reward you in person." Chapter 165. Ji Tianxing followed the second elder to the Sky Pillar Hall on the Red Firmament Peak. Along the way, he was still wondering what reward the sect master would give him. This time, he had helped Yun Yarrow retrieve Ji Ling's soul and kept the Sky Pillar sect secret. This contribution was not big, but it was not small either. Ji Tianxing guessed that the sect master would most likely reward him with some cultivation techniques and pills, and then encourage him. After a while, he followed the second elder into the Sky Pillar Hall. Sect Master Chu Tianxing, who was wearing a golden robe, was sitting on the sect master's throne in the north. Ji Tianxing walked to the center of the hall and bowed to Chu Tianxing. Chu Tianxing nodded slightly, revealing a satisfied expression. His voice was as loud as a bell, and he spoke in a dignified manner. "Ji Tianxing, this time you assisted Yun Yarrow in carrying out a mission. You went deep into the demon race's stronghold and risked your life to retrieve Ji Ling's soul. This is a great contribution. You are a meritorious member of our sect, so I must reward you well." As he spoke, he took out a small white jade bottle and a diamond-shaped black token from his interspatial ring. "I see that your injuries are not light, so I will reward you with 3 dew pills. This is a high-grade black-grade pill. It can help you quickly heal your injuries without affecting your martial arts foundation. In addition, I will also reward you with this Sky Pillar token." With that, Chu Tianxing waved his hand and shot out a scarlet true essence that wrapped around the small white jade bottle and the Sky Pillar token. He flew them to Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing reached out to take the small white jade bottle and the Sky Pillar token. His eyes revealed a hint of doubt. The jade dew pill in the small white jade bottle was the best medicine for treating injuries. He was very clear on this point. However, he was puzzled as to why the sect master would reward him with this Sky Pillar token. Chu Tianxing saw his confusion and explained in a kind tone, "This sky-raising command token is my token. Only 6 disciples in the sect have it. You are the 7th. With this token, you'll be able to freely enter and exit the ancient star realm. You'll also be able to freely enter and exit the sect's inner and outer sanctum, the martial pavilion, the spirit medicine hall, and other important places." Hearing Chu Tianxing's explanation, Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows, his eyes flashing with surprise. With this token in hand, his status and authority were almost on par with the elders of the sect. Only 6 disciples in the Sky Pillar sect had the Sky Pillar token. He secretly guessed that the 6 disciples should be Yun Yaro, Bai Wuchen, Hao Meng, and the others. They were all elite geniuses in the sect. In that case, wouldn't my position and power in the sect be the same as Yun Yaro and the other elite geniuses? I only helped Yun Yaro find Ji Ling's soul. It's enough for sect leader to reward me with 3 dew pills. Why did he reward me with a sky-raising token? This reward seems a little heavy. Although Ji Tianxing had obtained the Atlas Command badge that many disciples yearned for even in their dreams, this was a great honor. However, he didn't feel much excitement in his heart. Instead, he felt more puzzled and puzzled. He could clearly feel that sect leader Chu Tianxing seemed to have the intention of supporting him. However, this was a good thing for him. He really did need the authority brought by the sky-raising token to make it easier for him to move around the sect. While pondering silently in his heart, Ji Tianxing hurriedly accepted the white jade bottle and the sky-raising token and bowed to Chu Tianxing to thank him. Thank you for the reward, sect leader. This disciple will cultivate diligently and not let the sect down. Very good. Chu Tianxing nodded and encouraged him with a gratified expression. With your strength at the true energy realm, you were able to help Yun Yaro complete the mission and escape the demon cave alive. This is really rare. It also proves that your aptitude is outstanding and your future is bright. From now on, you must not slack off. You must cultivate diligently and enter the inner sanctum in the future to become a mainstay of the sect. This is the only way to live up to my expectations of you. Ji Tianxing could tell that this was not the polite words that the sect leader used to encourage ordinary disciples. Sect leader Chu Tianxing obviously had high hopes for him and might even entrust him with important tasks in the future. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing thanked him again and then left the sky-raising hall. After leaving the Crimson Cloud Peak, he saw that it was still early, so he didn't return to the Wind Cloud Courtyard. Instead, he went straight to the mountain peak to hide. After this mission, Ji Tianxing realized that he was unfamiliar with the other regions outside the Tianchen region. Apart from the Tianchen region, he didn't know about the other regions or the situation of the entire continent. If he wanted to quickly understand the various regions and the entire continent, the fastest way was of course to read and consult the history books. The inner sanctum at the peak of the mountain was a restricted area. Ji Tianxing didn't have the qualifications to enter in the past. Now, it was different. With the sky-raising token in his hand, he could enter and leave all the important places in the sect at will. The inner sanctum was different from the martial arts pavilion. The martial arts pavilion was filled with martial arts cultivation techniques, as well as recipes and secret manuals for miscellaneous studies. However, there were no cultivation techniques or secret manuals in the library. There were only various history books, biographies, and ancient documents. The sky-raising sect was an ancient sect with thousands of years of history. It paid the most attention to inheritance and heritage. Therefore, the sky-raising sect's library could be said to be the largest and most complete library in the Tianchen region. There were hundreds of thousands of books in the entire library. They contained all kinds of strange knowledge and information, from astronomy and geography to local customs and so on. There was nothing that it didn't contain. When Ji Tianxing entered the library, he was stopped by the black-robed deacon who was guarding the door. He took out the sky-raising token and handed it to the black-robed deacon. The black-robed deacon was stunned on the spot. His face was filled with surprise and disbelief. The black-robed deacon knew very well that there were only 6 disciples in the entire sect who had the sky-raising token. They were all the elite geniuses in the inner sanctum. Ji Tianxing was only an outer sanctum disciple, but he actually had a sky-raising token. This was simply too unbelievable. If it wasn't for the sect master's special mark on the sky-raising token that couldn't be replicated, the black-robed deacon would have even doubted the authenticity of this token. After the black-robed deacon let him go with a complicated expression, Ji Tianxing entered the library and began to flip through various history books and biographies. He shuttled through the rows of bookshelves for a while before finding 2 books. He sat in front of the desk by the window and read them seriously. One of the books was General History of the Tian-Shan continent. It mainly talked about the changes in history and geography of the Tian-Shan continent for the past 3,000 years. The other book was 9 Regions Wind and Cloud Records. It wrote about the 1,000 years of changes in the 9 regions of the Tian-Shan continent, as well as various strange stories. To other inner sanctum disciples, these 2 books were very ordinary and didn't pique their interest at all. However, to Ji Tianxing, who had never come into contact with such information, it was novel and interesting. The library was silent. The sunlight shone through the window onto the desk, illuminating his serious and focused face. At this moment, a beautiful young girl in a green dress walked into the Tibetan area. When she glanced at Ji Tianxing, who was focused on reading by the window, she couldn't help but be startled. Then, a faint smile appeared on her lips. Chapter 166. Ji Tianxing was engrossed in the book General History of the Tian-Shan continent. Through this book, he understood that in this vast martial arts world, there were many vast continents. The Tian-Shan continent was just one of the countless continents in the martial arts world, a small place. On the Tian-Shan continent, there were a few to a dozen regions in each of the 4 cardinal directions. The entire continent had a total of more than 40 regions. In the southern part of the continent, there were 9 large regions, and the Tian-Shan region was just one of them. Ji Tianxing also understood from the book that the Tian-Shan continent did not only have humans, but also a small number of other races, such as the Demon Clan and the Demon Clan. Although most of the Demon Clan's appearances were very strange, and most of them were very cunning. But the Demon Clan understood human nature, and many of them were kind-hearted and had a close relationship with humans, and would often move around in human territory. The Demon Clan was different. They were a bloodthirsty race by nature, and loved to fight and kill. Not only did humans hate the Demon Clan to the core, but even the Demon Clan saw them as their mortal enemy. Therefore, the Demon Clan was the public enemy of all races, and had no place to live on the continent, and could only hide in the underground world, struggling at death's door. After reading General History of the Tian-Shan continent, Ji Tianxing finally had a certain understanding of the continent's geography and situation. Other than that, he also understood many ancient legends, and saw the names of many martial artists. Kenshin was one of them. In this book, a lot of ink was used to describe the legends of the sword god. According to the book's records, Kenshin rose to power 1,000 years ago. He only used a short 20 years to grow from an unknown martial artist to the top of the continent, and his name shook the Tian-Shan continent, and he had the qualifications to reach the immortal state. Ji Tianxing was engrossed in the book when he heard a clear and melodious voice of a young girl. "Tianxing, I didn't expect to meet you here." Hearing this familiar voice, Ji Tianxing turned his head instinctively, and saw Xian Xian, who was wearing a long green dress and had a gentle temperament, walking over gracefully. He immediately smiled and greeted Xian Xian. "Junior sister Xian Xian, what a coincidence. Are you here to read as well?" "That's right." Xian Xian nodded her head and walked over to sit in front of him. Her movements were graceful and refined. She glanced at the 2 books in Ji Tianxing's hands and couldn't help but be surprised. "Tianxing, how do you know these books?" From Xian Xian's point of view, there were hundreds of thousands of books in the library, and they seemed to contain all kinds of martial arts secrets of the profound sky continent. Generally speaking, the reason why the disciples entered the library to read was to investigate all kinds of secrets and search for relevant clues. Ji Tianxing, on the other hand, was actually holding 2 historical biographies and reading them with great interest. This was simply a waste of time. Facing the pure and kind Xian Xian, Ji Tianxing didn't hide anything. He smiled and explained, "I don't know much about the various regions of the continent. I don't even know much about the situation in the heavenly stellar region. I don't even know much about the few great sects in the ancient star realm. That's why I want to read some books to get a better understanding of it. Just treat it as broadening my horizons." Xian Xian nodded and smiled faintly. "Actually, I've never left the heavenly stellar region, so I don't know much about the various regions of the continent. However, I do know a lot about the heavenly stellar region. If you want to know more about the situation in the heavenly stellar region, I can help you." Since Xian Xian was willing to explain, Ji Tianxing naturally couldn't ask for anything more. He smiled and nodded. Then I'll have to thank junior sister Xian Xian. Tianxing, you're too polite. Xian Xian revealed a faint smile and blinked her big clear eyes. All right, ask whatever you want to know. Ji Tianxing thought for a moment and asked, Xian Xian, tell me about the 8 great sects in the ancient star realm first. Xian Xian nodded slightly and said unhurriedly, in the heavenly stellar region, there are as many martial arts forces as there are hairs on an ox. There are at least 10,000 martial arts sects of all sizes. However, the strongest forces, the sects that have the foundation and inheritance, are only the 8 great sects. Only the 8 great sects have the qualifications to enter the ancient star realm, the holy land of martial arts. Our Sky Pillar sect is a 1,000-year-old sect and the head of the 8 great sects. Our strength and foundation are the strongest. The other 7 sects are the Tian Zhen sect, the 9 Stars sect, the 6 Harmonies sect, the 1,000 Autumn sect. The strength and foundation of these 7 sects are weaker than our Sky Pillar sect. However, the Tian Zhen sect is the strongest among the 7 sects and has always been a formidable opponent of our sect. Hearing Xian Xian mention the Tian Zhen sect, Ji Tianxing thought of the 2 Tian Zhen sect disciples he had met before. Recalling the words of the 2 Tian Zhen sect disciples, he couldn't help but ask Xian Xian, junior sister Xian Xian, I heard that the Tian Zhen sect and our sect have always been at odds. The 2 sects even agreed on some Dragon Mountain tournament. What's going on? The smile on Xian Xian's face disappeared and she said seriously, that's right. The Tian Zhen sect and our sect are indeed at odds. The disputes have been constant for 300 years. The patriarch of the Tian Zhen sect was also an influential figure 1,000 years ago. Just like our sect's patriarch, he received guidance from an otherworldly expert and obtained a great opportunity. 100 years after our sect was founded, the patriarch of the Tian Zhen sect finally comprehended the true meaning of the Sword Dao and reached the Heaven Origin realm. Only then did he establish the Tian Zhen sect and pass down the Sword Dao. Heaven Origin realm? Ji Tianxing was stunned and thought to himself, I've heard of this realm when I was in the Azure Cloud Nation. However, the Azure Cloud Nation has never had a powerhouse of this level, so I thought that the Heaven Origin realm only existed in legends. I didn't expect that there would be a Heaven Origin realm powerhouse among the 8 great sects of the ancient star realm. Xian Xian nodded and said, that's right. Only a Heaven Origin realm powerhouse can fly and travel the Tianxian continent. They can also establish their own sect and rule over a region. However, Tianxing, don't be surprised. Our sect has 2 Heaven Origin realm powerhouses now. That's why our sect can remain at the top of the 8 great sects. Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a smile, Junior sister Xian Xian, please continue. Xian Xian continued, the Tian Zhen sect passes down the Sword Dao. Every disciple in the sect has a murderous aura. That's why the sect's power is growing stronger and stronger. As the saying goes, 2 tigers cannot live on one mountain. The Tian Zhen sect has long coveted our sect's throne and tried to replace us and control the Tianchen region. For the past 300 years, the Tian Zhen sect and our sect have been in constant conflict. They often fight over resources such as spirit mines, spirit mines, and herb gardens. However, the power between the 8 great sects is complicated. The Tian Zhen sect and our sect both have to consider the big picture. It's impossible for them to fight openly. Therefore, the 2 sects have made various agreements and competitions. The winner of the competition will determine the ownership of some territories. As for the Dragon Mountain tournament you mentioned, it's a competition held every 3 years for the ownership of the Dragon Mountain. The Tian Zhen sect and our sect are the same. They recruit a new batch of disciples every 3 years. The new disciples can participate in the Dragon Mountain tournament in the 3rd month after joining the sect. If our sect's disciple wins, the Dragon Mountain will belong to our sect for the next 3 years. Chapter 167. Ji Tianxing listened attentively as Xian Xian talked about the Dragon Mountain tournament. After hearing Xian Xian's words, he frowned as a thoughtful look flashed across his eyes. Junior sister Xian Xian, so only the new outer disciples can participate in the Dragon Mountain tournament, right? That's right. Xian Xian nodded. In every Dragon Mountain tournament, our sect and the Tianjin sect will send 3 disciples to participate in the tournament. These 3 disciples are all from the Fengyun sect. Ji Tianxing wasn't surprised by this. The new disciples who had just joined the sect for 3 months didn't improve much. Of course, the geniuses from the Fengyun sect were stronger. He pondered in his heart and asked, "Junior sister Xian, what kind of place is Dragon Mountain? Why did the Tianjin sect and our sect fight over it?" Xian gazed at him and explained with a smile, "Dragon Mountain is 300 miles north of our sect. It's at the border between our sect and the Tianjin sect. It's said that thousands of years ago, a divine dragon lived in the Star Ancient Realm and cultivated in that mountain. The divine dragon cultivated in the mountain for thousands of years and achieved great success. Then, he flew away. That mountain was tainted by the divine dragon's aura for thousands of years and became a land of treasures. Mineral veins were born in the mountain and produced all kinds of ores for refining tools, as well as precious gems and spirit stones. The flowers and trees in the mountain were also tainted with spirituality and became spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs, making Dragon Mountain a natural spiritual herb garden." Hearing this, Ji Tianxing suddenly understood. "I see. There are mineral veins inside Dragon Mountain and natural spiritual herb gardens outside. It's indeed a land of treasures. No wonder the Tianjin sect wants to compete with our sect." Xian smiled and said, "Although Dragon Mountain is precious, there are many similar lands of treasures in the Star Ancient Realm. In fact, our sect and the Tianjin sect are competing for more than just Dragon Mountain. There are many other lands of treasures. The inner disciples of the 2 sects participate in the Heavenly Spring Tournament every few years to compete for the more precious Heavenly Spring treasures. However, only eldest senior sister and a few others are qualified to participate in the Heavenly Spring competition." Ji Tianxing didn't ask any more questions. He just silently noted down this matter. After that, he chatted with Xian for a long time and asked her many questions about the Tianchen region. Xian was extremely patient and answered every question for him in detail, allowing him to have a deeper understanding of the situation in the Heavenly Stellar region. Unknowingly, it was already evening, and the sun was about to set. Ji Tianxing and Xian walked out of the cave side by side and waved goodbye at the entrance. After returning to his residence in the Tempest Courtyard, Ji Tianxing entered the secret chamber and began to circulate his energy to treat his injuries. On the surface, he seemed to be in good condition, and there were no obvious wounds. However, in reality, his internal organs had already been severely injured by the blood moon Infanta's palm a few times. Ji Tianxing sat cross-legged in the secret room and took out 2 small white jade bottles from his 100 treasures silk pouch. Among them was a small white jade bottle containing 3 dew pills. These were the excellent pills that Sect Master Chu Tianxing had rewarded him. The other small bottle contained a mystic gold secret pill, which was the reward he had received from the last month-end assessment. Previously, he had only taken 1 pill and kept the other one. "I'll take the dew pill first to treat my internal injuries. After my injuries are healed, I'll circulate my energy and cultivate for a few days, striving to increase my strength by another level." After the trip to the Demon Cave, Ji Tianxing had personally experienced a life and death crisis and also witnessed the terrifying strength of a primordial core expert. In front of the powerful Demoness and High Priest, he deeply felt his own weakness. He secretly urged himself to increase his strength as quickly as possible so that he could have the qualifications to fight against the Demon Clan and search for the Heavenly Star Bead and the whereabouts of the Ji Clan's ancestor. After that, Ji Tianxing took a dew pill and began to circulate his energy to treat his injuries. Once the pill entered his throat, it turned into a cool and gentle stream of energy that spread throughout his body and naturally flowed through his meridians. Ji Tianxing could clearly feel that the cool stream of energy from the dew pill contained a majestic amount of medicinal power. However, that medicinal power was not the slightest bit forceful and overbearing. It did not make him feel any discomfort. Instead, it was incomparably comfortable. When the majestic medicinal power flowed through his meridians and surged into his internal organs, the burning sensation and pain in his internal organs immediately vanished into thin air. In the blink of an eye, he completely did not feel any pain, as if he had never been injured before. Such miraculous healing effects made Ji Tianxing rather surprised. He thought to himself, the effects of this dew pill are truly miraculous. It far surpasses ordinary black-grade high-grade medicinal pills. I'm afraid that this dew pill is a peerless grade medicinal pill personally refined by the spirit medicine elder, right? I reckon that only Yun Yarrow, Bai Wuchen, and those elite geniuses have the qualifications to use these spirit pills. As the pain in his body lessened, the medicinal effects of the dew pill also rapidly healed his injuries. He hurriedly collected his thoughts and focused on circulating his energy to treat his injuries. Time passed quietly. A night passed very quickly. Ji Tianxing circulated his energy to treat his injuries for an entire night. By the next morning, his injuries were actually 80% healed, and that dew pill's medicinal strength was only around 50% consumed. It was still continuing to flow within his body. The dew pill's extraordinary medicinal effects truly made him feel astounded. Ji Tianxing did not end his cultivation. He continued to refine the dew pill's medicinal strength to recover his injuries. Several hours later, his injuries were basically healed. But the dew pill's medicinal strength still had leftovers. In order to not waste the spirit medicine's medicinal strength, he borrowed the dew pill's medicinal strength to circulate his energy and cultivate, continuing to temper the sword vein within his body. Prior to this, Ji Tianxing already had true element realm 7th level strength. Of the 9 main meridians, 3 were already tempered into sword veins. He borrowed the dew pill's leftover medicinal strength and circulated his energy to cultivate for another 2 days. He actually tempered out a 4th sword vein. Ordinary meridians were dark red in color, resembling a series of formless passageways. There was true essence qi flowing within the passageways. But after his meridians were tempered into sword veins, they became dark gold in color. Sword veins were not only sturdier and more resilient than ordinary meridians, they could also contain more boundless true essence. The difference between the two was like the difference between a large river and a small stream. Just the dew pill's leftover medicinal strength can actually help me temper out a sword vein. This is too inconceivable. Ji Tianxing deeply felt the dew pill's powerful effects. His mood was somewhat excited and expectant. Since that's the case, then I might as well consume the remaining 2 dew pills and borrow the powerful medicinal strength to continue tempering out a few more sword veins. Hence, he swallowed the remaining 2 dew pills into his abdomen. The dew pills transformed into a vast and mighty cool air current, surging and surging within his body, faintly giving off the sound of a surging river. He concentrated wholeheartedly on tempering the sword vein, entering into a state of total oblivion. The sun and moon rose from the east and set in the west. Time passed quietly. 3 days, 4 days, 5 days passed. By the time Ji Tianxing completely refined the medicinal strength of the 2 dew pills, it was already a matter of 9 days later. At this time, he actually succeeded in tempering out 4 more sword veins. He had a total of 8 sword veins. His strength had also increased by several times. He was only half a step away from the mystic comprehending realm. This is the 4th chapter of today's update. There are a total of 7 chapters released today. The remaining 3 chapters will be released one after another. Brothers, please vote for me. Chapter 168. After finishing his cultivation, Ji Tianxing walked to the corner of the secret room and stood in front of the psychic stone pillar. There was a psychic stone pillar in the secret room of the Fengyun courtyard disciples, which was used to test their strength. Ji Tianxing could feel that he had reached the peak of the true energy realm. He was only half a step away from the mystic comprehending realm. He only needed to refine the last sword vein. However, he had to use the psychic stone pillar to test his true strength. His eyes were filled with anticipation. He slowly stretched out his hand and pressed it on the psychic stone pillar. The sword embryo in his body released powerful true core strength, which flowed into the psychic stone pillar through his palm. Immediately, the black lines on the stone pillar reacted, and several crimson rays of light lit up. 1, 2, 3. 9 rays of light. I have reached the 9th level of the true energy realm. Just as I guessed, as long as I refine the last main vein into a sword vein, I can reach the mystic comprehending realm. Ji Tianxing withdrew his hand. His eyes were filled with joy and anticipation. After a while, he calmed down and murmured, "I've been cultivating in seclusion for 9 days and jumped from the 7th level of the true energy realm to the 9th level. This is the magical effect of the dew pill. However, martial arts cultivation needs to be done step by step. A sudden increase in strength will cause the foundation of martial arts to be unstable, and my future achievements will be limited. I have to take the dark gold secret elixir again to strengthen and refine my true core strength and strengthen my foundation of martial arts." Although Ji Tianxing was only 17 years old, he was experienced in martial arts and would not be greedy. The recent encounters and dangers had made him more calm and reserved. He was neither arrogant nor rash. Next, Ji Tianxing took the dark gold secret elixir and cultivated for a few hours to stabilize his foundation of martial arts. He did not stop cultivating until the sun rose and walked out of the secret room. At this time, the other disciples of the Fengyun courtyard had already walked out of their rooms. They were gathered in the courtyard in 2s and 3s, discussing something in low voices. Seeing Ji Tian walk out of the room, all the disciples were stunned for a moment, and cast strange gazes at him one after another. Everyone looked at him for a moment, then began to whisper to each other. Under the great banyan tree, Jiyu Jianming, Yi Changsheng, and the others whispered to each other with strange expressions. Ji Tianxing, this brat, is really arrogant. TSK, 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 this guy hasn't appeared for half a month. I thought he had left the storm courtyard. He, Deacon Han repeatedly told everyone to train hard, and this brat still dared to disappear for half a month. How audacious. In this half a month, Deacon Han has been teaching in the main hall every morning, teaching everyone the Tao of array formations. Ji Tianxing, this brat, actually didn't even attend a single class. At the stone table beside the ancient well, Yi Mo and Shi Jingcheng were discussing with sneers on their faces. He is too arrogant. You think you can be so arrogant just because you got first place in the alchemy test last month? You're so arrogant that there's no cure. Ji Tianxing should be the most arrogant disciple in the storm courtyard, right? Today is the mid-month quiz. Later, Deacon Han will test everyone. Ji Tianxing didn't even attend a single class. I want to see how he ends up today. Last month's first place is going to be punished today. Just thinking about it makes me excited. In the corner of the courtyard, Lu Mingyang also stopped sweeping. He was holding a broom and looking at Ji Tianxing with ridicule. Ji Tianxing, oh Ji Tianxing, you're too complacent. In today's mid-month quiz, you will definitely be defeated and become a laughingstock. I will take advantage of this to become famous and take first place. Although Ji Ling was expelled from the sect, I will never let you go. Ji Tianxing stood under the eaves at the entrance. Looking at the complicated expressions of the 8 disciples, he couldn't help but frown. Is there something wrong with these people's brains? I didn't do anything. Why are they all so jealous of me? At this moment, the door next door opened. Nai Hao walked out of the room and stood under the eaves to stretch. Obviously, he had also just finished cultivating. He turned his head and saw Ji Tianxing. He couldn't help but be stunned. Then, he walked to Ji Tianxing's side and said with a playful smile, "Brother Ji, oh Brother Ji, where have you been for the past half a month? Why haven't you shown your face even once?" Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and smiled, "I was really too busy before. After dealing with some matters, I went into seclusion to cultivate for a few days. I didn't expect that half a month would pass in the blink of an eye." Nai Hao smiled bitterly and shook his head. He said with a helpless tone, "Brother Ji, in the past half a month, you haven't even attended Deacon Han's class. The other disciples are all talking about you behind your back." Ji Tianxing glanced at the 8 disciples in the courtyard and sneered disdainfully, they're all a group of shady villains who only know how to hurt others behind their backs. There's nothing to be afraid of. Nai Hao nodded and patted his shoulder. It's good that Brother Ji understands. Don't worry about them. However, today is the mid-month exam. Deacon Han is going to test everyone today. Brother Ji, you have to be careful. Those people are waiting to see you make a fool of yourself. Ji Tianxing frowned slightly as a disdainful sneer appeared on his face. These shady villains want to see me make a fool of myself. Dream on. Nai Hao immediately laughed and gave him a thumbs up. Although he didn't say anything, his gesture was enough to explain everything. Soon, the bell rang in the main hall. The disciples in the courtyard all stopped their discussions and rushed towards the main hall. Ji Tianxing also walked to the main hall with Nai Hao. His expression was calm and his eyes contained a hint of confidence. Although in the past half a month, he hadn't even attended a single array class. However, he already had a foundation in array Dao and was extremely talented. After Xiong Wuji's guidance, his array Dao attainment had greatly improved. Even if he wasn't proficient in array Dao, it wouldn't be a problem for him to pass Han Qiusheng's test. Of course, previously when he assisted Yun Yarrow in carrying out a mission, he experienced a series of life and death crises. He deeply understood the importance of array Dao attainment. He also truly understood Han Qiusheng's good intentions. The array Dao was inextricably linked to martial artists. When martial artists roamed the world, they could use array Dao anytime and anywhere. At critical moments, they could even save their lives. He had already secretly decided that after today's exam, he would work even harder to study array Dao and improve his array Dao attainment. After a while, Ji Tianxing and the disciples gathered in the main hall. Han Qiusheng and Du Wu also entered the main hall. Han Qiusheng walked to the main seat and looked at everyone with a dignified gaze. He said in a serious tone, "Half a month has passed. I believe that everyone has cultivated diligently and has already started. Today, I want to test the results of your studies in the past half a month. I want to see if you have cultivated diligently. For this test, I won't ask you any questions. I'll let you answer them." This seat has already set up a profound grade-low-grade refinement grand formation to test all of you. Chapter 169. Hearing Han Qiusheng's words, the faces of the disciples changed. They all thought that Han Qiusheng would ask questions in front of everyone like he did in last month's quiz. For this reason, they had been listening to classes every day for half a month and had memorized the 2 thick books on array formations. They thought that they were well prepared and were determined to pass today's quiz. However, they did not expect that Han Qiusheng would not ask questions and directly use array formations to test them. This was simply a bolt from the blue, causing the disciples to panic. Fortunately, Han Qiusheng changed the topic and said loudly, "However, everyone need not worry. As long as you study diligently for half a month, you will pass the test." This profound grade array is a type of trap array called the mother-child profound array. There are other smaller arrays in the array that require everyone to consider before they can be broken. I have placed 10 identity tokens in the mother and child profound formation. Each token has your name on it. What you need to do is to enter the mother-child profound array, find your identity token, and smoothly walk out of the array. After hearing Han Qiusheng's words, everyone's hearts calmed down. They silently speculated about the mysteries of the mother-child profound array. Subsequently, Han Qiusheng and Du Wu led everyone out of the hall and into the backyard of the storm courtyard. In the backyard, there was an open space with a radius of 10 meters. The ground was covered with silver and black stone slabs that were engraved with various patterns. Ji Tianxing could tell at a glance that there was an array set up in that area. It should be the mother-child profound array that Han Qiusheng had mentioned. Sure enough, Han Qiusheng waved his hand and shot out rays of true essence into the stone slabs on the ground to activate the mother-child profound array. Swoosh! Powerful true essence burst out from the stone slabs and lit up with dazzling white light, forming a white light shield with a radius of 10 meters. Everyone stared at the white light shield and could not see the scene inside the array. They did not know what kind of test was waiting for them. Everyone, the time limit for this test is 2 hours. You must find your identity medallion within 2 hours and successfully walk out of the formation. Only then will you pass. After saying that, Han Qiusheng let the 10 disciples scatter and enter the mother-child profound array from different directions. Swoosh, 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 swish. After a flash of white light, the 10 disciples all passed through the white light barrier and entered the mother-child profound formation. The courtyard quieted down, leaving only Han Qiusheng and Du Wu. Du Wu frowned and said to Han Qiusheng in a low voice, Brother Han, who do you think can seize first place in this test? Han Xiaosheng's lips curled into a smile as he said confidently, I think it's very likely to be Lu Mingyang. Although this kid has been silent for the past half a month, he hasn't revealed his talent. But I've long seen through it. In fact, he was already proficient in the Tao of formations before he entered the sect. He was punished by me to sweep the floor for a month, and his heart has long since been filled with rage and hatred. He vowed to seize first place in this month's test and wash away his shame. Obviously, Du Wu also realized this point. He immediately nodded and said, yes, Lu Mingyang has the strength of the mystic comprehending state and is proficient in the formation doctrine. The first place in this assessment is definitely him. However, Ji Tianxing, that brat, has indeed become a little arrogant in the past half a month. He actually didn't come to class even once. Arrogant? Han Qiusheng raised his eyebrows and revealed a playful smile. This brat seems to be silent, but he's actually calm and steady. He's definitely not an arrogant person. I've already asked the elders a few days ago. It's not that the brat didn't come to class on purpose. He just went out to assist Yun Yarrow in carrying out a mission. Du Wu finally understood and smiled embarrassedly. Haha, so I've misunderstood him. Brother Han, you've paid more attention to him. However, this brat has been delayed for half a month after all. I'm afraid he'll come in last today, right? Han Qiusheng frowned and thought for a moment. He shook his head and said, I don't think so. This brat has already become familiar with the old man from Grayton Palace. What kind of person is that old man? He only needs to give a little guidance to Ji Tianxing, and it'll be enough for Ji Tianxing to pass the test. Du Wu thought for a moment and felt that it made sense, so he didn't say anything else. Now, his thoughts were the same as Han Qiusheng's. They both felt that Ji Tianxing had hope of passing the test. As for Ji Tianxing obtaining first place, they really hadn't thought about this question, and they couldn't believe it. Ji Tianxing looked at the scene in front of him. He wasn't in a hurry to act. His eyes were sharp as he observed. After entering the mother-child Shen formation, he appeared on a stone platform. There were 9 steps below the stone platform. At the end of the steps was a 10-meter wide bluestone passageway. The passageway was built with huge bluestones, and it exuded an ancient aura. The entire passageway was 100 meters long. At the end of the passageway was a 10-meter tall black stone door. The passageway wasn't completely dark. On the walls on the left and right sides, there was a vitality stone lamp every 10 meters. It was lit with a dim yellow light. Ji Tianxing observed for a moment and realized that the bluestone walls were engraved with array patterns and symbols. Obviously, this seemingly quiet and flat passageway was filled with arrays and hidden weapons. If he wanted to pass through the 100-meter passageway and reach the black stone door on the other side, he would have to go through a test. I'm the only one in the passageway. It seems that the 10 of us will have to pass through the bluestone passageway alone and open the black door. Since Deacon Han has set up this mother-child Shen formation to test the 10 of us, it shouldn't be too difficult. Ji Tianxing muttered a few words in a low voice. Then, he walked down the steps and walked towards the bluestone passageway. When his feet stepped on the bluestone floor of the passageway, the test had begun. The bluestone floor under his feet and the bluestone walls on both sides emitted a dull rumbling sound. It seemed that some mechanism had been activated. He walked forward cautiously. His feet kept stepping over one bluestone slab after another. In the blink of an eye, he had walked 3 meters away. But at this moment, a strange change occurred. Ji Tianxing's right foot stepped on a bluestone slab. That slab suddenly sank, revealing a black hole that was as thick as a water bucket. Caught off guard, his right foot also sank into the bluestone slab. His body also leaned forward, and he was about to fall to the ground. At this critical moment, he suddenly exerted strength from his waist. He immediately straightened his body and forcibly retracted his right foot. Almost at the same time as he retracted his right foot, 3 sharp spears emerged from the black hole with a shua 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 sound. That was close. If I had retracted my foot a little slower, I would definitely have been pierced by the spears. Ji Tianxing frowned. He went around the 3 spears and continued to move forward. After 5 steps, The bluestone slab that his left foot stepped on suddenly sank. This time, he was prepared. He immediately retracted his left foot and stood firmly on the spot. However, a few black holes suddenly appeared on the stone walls on both sides. More than 10 sharp arrows shot out from the holes. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. More than a dozen sharp arrows whistled through the air and shot towards him as fast as lightning, accompanied by a sharp sound of breaking through the air. Ji Tianxing calmly jumped back 5 steps and dodged the attack of those sharp arrows. More than 10 sharp arrows brushed past his shoulder and missed by a hair's breadth. The sharp force of the arrows cut his skin painfully. However, when he hurriedly retreated, he triggered another mechanism. The arrays on both sides of the walls were activated. 6 crimson sword auras flew out. They were accompanied by intense flames and pierced towards him at an extremely fast speed. Each sword aura was more than a meter long. They were lifelike and looked like fiery red treasured swords. They were also very powerful, comparable to the attack of a Tongxian expert. At this critical moment, Ji Tianxing did not retreat. Instead, he rushed forward and tried his best to avoid the 6 flaming sword auras. Swish swish swish. The 6 sword auras brushed past him. The rising flames curled the ends of his hair and scorched the sleeves of his robe. The 6th update has been delivered. There will be another update later. Please wait for a moment. Chapter 170. Ji Tianxing frowned as he looked at his curly hair and burnt sleeves. It can't be. It's just a mid-month test. Why is Deacon Han so ruthless? The power of the first round is already so strong. Wouldn't those weaker disciples be injured or even killed? He knew clearly that the flaming sword rays that shot out from the 2 walls were extremely violent. It was equivalent to the attack of a level 4 Tongxian realm expert. With his current combat power, he could easily defeat a level 3 Tongxian realm expert. However, he was still defeated by the flaming sword rays. He could not help but suspect that if the other disciples triggered the mechanism and were attacked by the 6 flaming sword rays, wouldn't they be turned into barbecued meat? Ji Tianxing stood still and frowned as he pondered. No. If even I can't pass, the other 8 disciples will definitely fail. Deacon Han only wants to test us, not take our lives. Therefore, we can't force our way through this tunnel. There must be a way to break it. I haven't listened to Deacon Han's lessons, but the other disciples have listened to his lessons for half a month. They must have learned the way to break it. Deacon Han only wants to test if they are diligent in learning. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing understood Han Qiuxing's intention. He started to observe the limestone tunnel carefully, studying the array patterns and symbols on the walls, and pondering the way to break the array. The limestone tunnel fell into silence as time passed by quietly. Ji Tianxing carefully observed for a quarter of an hour and finally found some clues. He pondered for another 15 minutes and finally found a way to break the array. He also made a new discovery. On the surface, it seemed that he needed to break through the limestone tunnel, avoid the various mechanisms, concealed weapons, and arrays in the tunnel, and finally open the black stone door on the other side. But in reality, he found that after breaking the array in the limestone tunnel, it would open up a very concealed small tunnel. After passing through that small tunnel, he would be able to reach the center of the mother-child profound formation, which was the place where the 10 identity tokens were stored. Understanding this point, Ji Tianxing immediately revealed a face full of smiles, and his eyes became playful. Haha, Deacon Han has indeed put in a lot of effort. As expected of the mother-child profound formation, there are still various small formations hidden within the large formation. Only mediocre people would pass through the limestone passageway and open the black stone door. True geniuses don't even need to pass through the passageway or open the stone door. They can directly reach the center of the formation. After laughing softly for a while, Ji Tianxing stopped laughing and his expression became serious and focused. He waved his hand and shot out several streaks of golden true essence into the bluestone wall. He began to crack the array. Meanwhile, in a dim bluestone passageway, Yi Mo was walking confidently through the bluestone passageway, rushing towards the black stone door on the other side. He did not charge blindly, nor did he walk in a straight line. Sometimes he advanced, sometimes he retreated, and sometimes he moved left and right. His feet were moving in a profound and mysterious way, and he was reciting a set of steps. 3 to advance and 1 to retreat, 6 to the left and 5 to the bottom, 2 to the universe and 4 to the earth. Feigning to enter Zhongyuan in real time, while feigning to enter Yangqiu in real time. Obviously, Yimo was following this set of steps, moving forward in the bluestone passageway. After a short quarter of an hour, he had passed through the bluestone passageway without triggering a single hidden weapon or mechanism. He had successfully arrived at the black stone door. When Yimo stood in front of the black stone door, his tense nerves finally relaxed, and a confident smile appeared on his face. Ha 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 ha. I, Yimo, am indeed a genius. Not only am I proficient in alchemy, but I also have such a high aptitude for formations. In the past half-month, I have been listening to Deacon Han's lectures every day, and I have been especially serious and hardworking. Now it seems that my hard work will soon pay off. I am very likely to win first place. The 7 profound formula that Deacon Han taught is the universal formula to crack all kinds of formations. Fortunately, I had the foresight to memorize the 7 profound formula and recite it backwards. Just as I expected, the hidden weapons and formations that Deacon Han set up in this bluestone passageway all contain the mysteries of the 7 profound formula. It only took me a quarter of an hour to distinguish that the formation in this passageway uses the 4th profound formula of the 7 profound formula. I only need to follow the formula of the 4th profound formula, and I can easily pass. I admire my genius and wit, ha 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 ha. Thinking of this, Yimo became more confident, and his face was full of complacency. He groped for a moment on the left side of the black stone door, opened a secret compartment on the wall, and found a palm-sized black wheel. The wheel was shaped like a gear, and it was the opening mechanism of the black door. Yimo did not hesitate to turn the gear mechanism, and the thick and heavy black stone door opened with a creaking sound. Swish! Yimo did not dare to waste time, and rushed out of the black door as fast as the wind. The next moment, he rushed into a spacious circular hall, and quickly stopped. He saw that the hall had a radius of 50 meters, and it was surrounded by bluestone walls. On the surrounding walls, there were a total of 10 black stone doors. In addition to him, there were 3 other black stone doors that had been opened. There were 3 disciples standing in front of each stone door, and just like him, they were looking around in confusion. Yimo recognized the 3 disciples, and his face suddenly changed. The confidence and complacency in his heart disappeared instantly. Shi Jingcheng? Nai Hao? Wei Jinhong? You 3 have also broken through the passage and passed the first test. He thought that he was the first one to break through the passage, but he did not expect that the 3 disciples were faster than him. Shi Jingcheng, Nai Hao, and the other 2 also saw Yimo, and immediately showed a playful smile. Haha, Yimo, you are too slow, and can only be ranked 4th. The first test is so easy, as long as you memorize the 7 mysterious formulas, you can pass. What's so surprising about that? Look, another one has passed the first test. Sure enough, a black stone door not far away opened, and a young disciple walked out. In the next 100 breaths, more and more black stone doors were opened, and one disciple after another came into the hall. Not long after, there were 8 disciples in the hall. Only 2 stone doors were not opened, and Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang were still missing. Seeing this, several disciples showed a mocking or contemptuous sneer, and began to talk unscrupulously. Ha 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 ha, as I expected, Ji Tianxing is going to be last. Yes. He didn't even listen to a class for half a month, and I guess he doesn't even know what the 7 mysterious formulas are. Haha, last month he got the first place in the test, and he is so arrogant that he doesn't know who he is. He can't even pass the first test, and there will be a good show to watch later. Lu Mingyang didn't come out, either. He swept the floor for half a month, and his brain became stupid, and he can't even pass the first test. Ha 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 ha, this is ridiculous. Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang, these 2 wastes, will be disgraced today. The 7th chapter has been delivered, and this chapter is a separate chapter for the reader Tong. I would like to thank you for your 10,000 book coins reward, and become the first leader of this book. The new book rules are the same as the old book Blade Breaks the Firmament. Every 10,000 book coins reward 1 chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 171. The disciples discussed for a while and then looked at the center of the hall. There was a white light shield with a radius of 10 meters, shining with a dazzling white light and emitting a majestic aura of origin energy. This was obviously another large array, and it was an array within an array. The name of the mother and child Shen array came from this. The large array that everyone was in was the mother array, and the array in the center of the hall was the child array. Han Qiusheng placed everyone's identity tokens in the child array. Everyone had only passed the first test. Next, they still needed to enter the child array and find their own identity tokens. Half an hour had passed, and a quarter of the 2-hour deadline that Han Qiusheng gave them had passed. The disciples all felt that time was of the essence and hurriedly walked towards the child array. Time is tight, let's hurry to the child array to find the tokens. Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang haven't come out yet. It seems that there is no hope. They will definitely fail the test. Why do we still care about those two trash? Let's hurry and take a look at the child array. This child array is strange. We can't enter directly. We still need to crack it. It seems that the second test is different. Let's study it quickly and think of a way to crack it. It won't work. I tried several methods that Deacon Han taught us, but they all didn't work. The disciples discussed for a while and realized that the difficulty of the second test had increased greatly. Their faces became dignified. They finally understood that although the mother and child Shen array that Han Qiusheng set up was only a black-level low-grade array, there was a hidden mystery. It was not so easy to enter the child array and get the identity token. Swoosh! A white light flashed, and Lu Mingyang appeared in a dark passage out of thin air. Behind him and on both sides were bluestone walls. Only the passage in front of him extended into the distance, and there was light at the end. Lu Mingyang looked around and saw that there was no one in the dark passage. He immediately revealed a smug sneer. Hehe. Those idiots must have thought that I didn't pass the first test, right? With their pig brains, how could they think that I passed the first test and directly entered the child array? It seems that the first place of this test is mine. Ha ha ha. Thinking of this, Lu Mingyang couldn't help but laugh out loud. But at this moment, a white light flashed beside him with a swish sound. Then, a young man in a green robe appeared out of thin air. Lu Mingyang's face suddenly changed. He looked over and recognized that this person was Ji Tianxing. He was immediately stunned and stared at Ji Tianxing in disbelief. Ji Tianxing. You. Why are you here? This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. Lu Mingyang was proficient in array formations before entering the sky-bearing sect, so he was very confident in this assessment and disdained the other disciples. But he never would have thought that Ji Tianxing would be the same as him, breaking through the first level and directly entering the child array. Moreover, Ji Tianxing was only one step behind him. Ji Tianxing also saw the surrounding scene clearly, and his eyes fell on Lu Mingyang. Seeing Lu Mingyang's expression as if he had seen a ghost, he immediately curled his lips in disdain and said, "What a fuss. It's just an array within an array. There are mysteries everywhere in the array, and they are connected to each other. As long as you crack the array, you can break the illusion on the surface." Speaking of this, Ji Tianxing stopped and waved his hand disdainfully. "Forget it, I'm too lazy to explain too much to you. Anyway, you won't understand even if I tell you." "What?" Lu Mingyang's eyes immediately glared angrily. He was provoked by his contemptuous attitude and his face turned ashen. "How dare you look down on me? I don't understand." "Ha ha ha. Ji Tianxing. You are too arrogant." Lu Mingyang's face was ferocious as he glared at Ji Tianxing. He was so angry that he laughed. Ji Tianxing furrowed his brows in disgust when he saw the crazy look on his face. "Lu Mingyang, are you crazy? Why are you acting crazy?" Lu Mingyang became more and more furious. He gritted his teeth and scolded, "You, good for you, Ji Tianxing. Just you wait. I will definitely take the first place and trample you under my feet. I will let you see, who is the array genius." Ji Tianxing showed an expression as if he was looking at an idiot and said disdainfully, "Do you still need to ask? It's definitely me." After saying that, he curled his lips in disdain and walked into the depths of the passage. Lu Mingyang looked at his back and suddenly gritted his teeth in anger. His fists were clenched so tightly that creaking sounds could be heard. Damn it! He wants to provoke me, make me lose my mind and waste my time. I almost fell into his trap. After a long time, he reacted and hurriedly chased after him. When Lu Mingyang reached the end of the passage, he saw two light doors in front of him. The light door on the left was red, and the edge of the door frame was surrounded by rising flames. The light door on the right was ice blue, and the door frame was covered with thick ice and many icicles were hanging on it. Seeing these two light doors, Lu Mingyang immediately understood. Looks like there is another world in this child array, and I can enter through two paths. The left represents fire, and the right represents ice. Just now Ji Tianxing entered the ice door on the right. Since that's the case, I will enter from the flame door on the left. After making up his mind, Lu Mingyang did not hesitate to step into the flame door. Swoosh! With a flash of fire, Lu Mingyang entered the child array small world and appeared in a mountain range that was as red as fire. The entire mountain range was bare, and the surface was covered with dark brown rocks that constantly emitted spirals of black smoke. The temperature of the ground was extremely high, and many places were roasted dark red by the flames. There were also some potholes that were filled with red magma. There were also a few red streams on the hillside, and red magma flowed down from the peak of the mountain. The air was extremely hot, and there were even light red flames that could be seen with the naked eye. Lu Mingyang only stood on the flame mountain range for a while, and he felt that his body was boiling hot, and his skin was dry, as if it was about to smoke. Isn't Deacon Han's work too big? He actually created a flame mountain in the array? There is no way around. It looks like I have to climb over the flame mountain to get the identity token. Although I know that this is an illusion created by the array, it's too realistic. It's like passing off the fake as the real thing. If I can't break the array, even if it's an illusion, it's enough to make me suffer. Lu Mingyang muttered in a low voice as he walked up the flame mountain, and his sharp eyes searched around. He avoided the places where the flames gathered, and the areas where the red magma flowed, and walked up to the peak of the mountain unhurriedly. Although the air and the ground were extremely hot, and the scene of magma flowing on the hillside made him tremble in fear, he still persisted. He gritted his teeth and persevered, and kept reminding himself that all of this was an illusion created by the array. As long as he could find a way to break the array, everything would be solved. Chapter 172. 15 minutes later, Lu Mingyang arrived at the mountainside of the blazing mountain. After 15 minutes of observation and searching, he finally found the key to cracking the array. It was a pit covered in lava, and it was one of the 4 array bases that supported the blazing mountain's array. If it was an ordinary disciple, even if they knew that the array base was under the lava pit, they would not dare to crack it. Lu Mingyang hesitated for a moment before using his true essence to send out palm shadows to clean up the dark red lava in the lava pit. He then used his palm techniques to blast away the hard rocks at the bottom of the lava pit and finally found the array base. It was a black disk the size of a wash basin, and it was one of the 4 array bases of the blazing mountain's array. The array base was engraved with crisscrossing array patterns, and there were a dozen dark red gems in the patterns. If this array base was a chessboard, then the dozen dark red gems were the chess pieces, and they were the key to cracking and controlling the array. Haha, I was right. No matter how mysterious the array is, it can't escape my eyes. I am a true array genius. Lu Mingyang smiled proudly and quickly looked down to observe the array base. In a short time, he found the way to crack the array. He confidently stretched out his finger and moved the few dark red gems on the array base. The array base's layout was changed, and the blazing mountain also changed. From Lu Mingyang's feet to the peak of the blazing mountain, there was a small path paved with dark brown rocks. There were no flames, no black smoke, and no crimson red lava on the small path. Lu Mingyang's lips curled into a proud smile. He stepped onto the rocky path and quickly rushed to the peak. Soon, he arrived at the peak of the blazing mountain. At this time, he saw that there was a completely blue ice mountain about 10 miles away on the opposite side of the blazing mountain. He immediately understood that if Ji Tianxing wanted to enter the ice gate, he would have to climb over that ice mountain. Haha, Ji Tianxing can't be faster than me. "First place is mine." Lu Mingyang sneered and looked down at the foot of the blazing mountain. Between the blazing mountain and the ice mountain was a flat area with a radius of 10 miles. This area had green grasslands, a golden desert, and a clear lake. In the middle of the plain, a high platform made of marble could be vaguely seen. Lu Mingyang stared at the high platform for a moment, then revealed an expectant smile. "It seems that everyone's identity medallions are placed on that platform. I have to hurry. I can't let Ji Tianxing get ahead of me." He hurriedly lowered his head and looked around, searching for the formation base at the peak of the flaming mountain. With his previous experience, Lu Mingyang quickly found an array base in the nearby magma pool. He tried his best to clear the magma and found an array disk at the bottom of the magma pool. This array disk was the same as the previous one. It was also covered with array patterns, and there were more than a dozen dark red gems on its surface. After Lu Mingyang forcefully moved a few dark red gems, the formation of the flaming mountain changed. The flames on the ground beneath his feet went out, and a rocky path leading to the foot of the mountain appeared. Lu Mingyang hurriedly rushed down the flaming mountain and entered the grassland full of fragrant grass. The grassland seemed to have a pleasant scenery, but in fact, it was also arranged by an array and was full of difficulties and obstacles. But this was not a problem for Lu Mingyang. He cracked several array bases along the way and finally succeeded in climbing the high platform after a quarter of an hour. The high platform made of marble was like a 10-meter-high altar, surrounded by steps. At the top of the high platform was a stone table with 10 black diamond-shaped medallions on it. Lu Mingyang looked around and saw that he was the only one around the high platform. He immediately revealed a proud smile. "Ha ha! I'm the first to arrive. I'm first." While roaring excitedly, Lu Mingyang ran over the steps and climbed up the high platform. He rushed to the stone table and found his identity medallion among the 10 medallions. However, after he put away his identity medallion, he did not turn around and leave. His gaze fell on Ji Tianxing's identity medallion and frowned for a moment. He suddenly thought of an idea and his eyes flashed with a sinister sneer. Then, Lu Mingyang took Ji Tianxing's identity medallion, turned around and walked down the high platform towards the golden desert not far away. The golden desert is filled with violent and fierce sword qi. There is also a powerful sword array that constantly bursts out sword rays. Ji Tianxing, O Ji Tianxing. Not only will I take first place, I will also make you fail the exam and become the laughingstock of the Tempest Academy. He walked into the golden desert with a sneer and threw Ji Tianxing's identity medallion into the desert. Unfortunately, although there is a sword array in the golden desert, it cannot be easily triggered. No, I have to activate the sword array and double its power. Only then will I be able to trap Ji Tianxing. Lu Mingyang still felt uneasy and found the array base of the golden desert. He also found a cyan array plate underground. This was a square array plate. Its surface was engraved with array patterns and symbols. There were also a dozen or so little golden people acting as chess pieces to control the array. Lu Mingyang pondered for a moment and used his strength to move a few of the little golden people, changing the array pattern. Suddenly, the entire golden desert lit up with a dazzling golden light, forming a translucent golden light shield. There was an endless amount of gung metal sword qi in the light shield, constantly condensing into one sharp and fierce golden sword ray after another. Hundreds of violent golden sword rays constantly danced and shuttled back and forth in the light shield, making swish 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 sounds. The power was terrifying. Lu Mingyang was very clear that even if he was thrown into the light shield, he would not be able to withstand the numerous sword rays. He would certainly be strangled black and blue all over. He was very satisfied with this result and revealed a triumphant sneer. Ji Tianxing cut through the thorns and broke through several arrays before finally rushing to the center of the plain and under the high platform. He looked at the stone table at the top of the platform and saw the black identity medallions on the table. He finally let out a sigh of relief. Phew! I finally found the identity medallion. He whispered in a low voice and turned his head to look around. He found that he was the only one under the high platform. Strange, where is Lu Mingyang? Is he not here yet? Ji Tianxing furrowed his brows in confusion, then hurriedly stepped onto the stage. When he arrived at the stone table, he glanced at the identity medallions on the table and his eyelids suddenly twitched. Why are there only 8 medallions? He vaguely had a bad premonition and quickly searched for his own medallion among the 8 medallions. In the end, there was no medallion for him among the 8 medallions. The 2 medallions that disappeared were his and Lu Mingyang's. Lu Mingyang, this despicable person, actually took away my identity medallion. Ji Tianxing's face suddenly became gloomy and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Chapter 173. The results of the mid-month quiz were determined based on the identity token. Ji Tianxing had broken through a few arrays and reached the platform where the identity token was. If he did not retrieve the token that belonged to him, he would be judged as having failed the quiz. He stood on the platform and looked around, searching for Lu Mingyang's figure. As expected, when he looked at the golden desert to the east of the platform, he immediately saw Lu Mingyang's figure. He frowned and immediately rushed down the platform towards the golden desert. Swoosh! In just a few seconds, Ji Tianxing rushed to the vicinity of the golden desert and rushed in front of Lu Mingyang. Lu Mingyang was standing at the edge of the golden desert, looking at him with a smile. He looked calm and unruffled, as if he was waiting to watch a good show. Lu Mingyang, you despicable person, hand over my token. Ji Tianxing stood 10 steps away from him and shouted coldly. Lu Mingyang's smile became even brighter, and he said in a mocking tone, "Haha, you're quite capable, you're only 1 step behind me. Unfortunately, I'm more skilled than you, I found the identity token before you." As he said that, he pointed at the golden light shield behind him and sneered, "You want to take back the token? It's in that sword array, go ahead and take it if you can." Ji Tianxing looked carefully. There was indeed a black token lying in the desert inside the golden light shield. He frowned, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "Lu Mingyang, you're courting death." As he said that, his figure flashed and rushed towards Lu Mingyang, raising his fists and smashing them down. His fists were shining with a golden light, and he actually used his true origin to condense a golden fist shadow. Seeing this, Lu Mingyang immediately sneered disdainfully and shouted contemptuously, "Ji Tianxing, are you confused? You dare to fight me with your true origin realm strength? Ah!" As he said that, he raised his fists and smashed them towards Ji Tianxing. He wanted to use his mystic comprehending realm strength to defeat Ji Tianxing head-on. However, his words stopped abruptly halfway through, and the second half of his sentence turned into a scream. Bang! With a muffled sound, Lu Mingyang was blown away and smashed into the desert 5 meters away, splashing a large amount of golden sand. He lay on the ground in a sorry state, his body covered in sand. He struggled to get up, only to find that both his wrists were broken and he couldn't exert any strength. He simply could not accept this result. He could not believe that he was defeated by Ji Tianxing in 1 move. Not only was he sent flying, but his wrist was also broken. Impossible. How is this possible? Ji Tianxing, you are only at the true energy realm while I have already reached the Tongxian realm. How can you possibly defeat me? Lu Mingyang's face was filled with anger. He raised his head to look at Ji Tianxing and roared unwillingly. Ji Tianxing strode towards him, the corners of his mouth hooked up in a contemptuous sneer. Lu Mingyang, you think too highly of yourself. Not to mention that you are only at level 1 of the Tongxian realm. Even if you were at level 4 of the Tongxian realm, you would still be no match for me. As soon as he finished speaking, he had already walked to Lu Mingyang's side. When Lu Mingyang saw his cold expression, he was so scared that he immediately retreated. Ji Tianxing, what are you trying to do? This is the mother-child profound formation. Don't act recklessly, or else Deacon Han will definitely not forgive you. Lu Mingyang was trying to intimidate Ji Tianxing, but he was actually feeling extremely nervous. Hehe, look at you, wagging your tail and begging for mercy. What a joke. Ji Tianxing sneered contemptuously. He suddenly lifted his right leg and kicked him hard in the chest. Bang! Lu Mingyang was kicked so hard that he spat out blood and sank deep into the sand. His entire body was buried by the golden sand. He struggled with all his might, but his chest was pressed down by Ji Tianxing's right leg, making him unable to move at all. Blood overflowed from his mouth as he roared hysterically, "Ah! Ji Tianxing! You bastard! How dare you humiliate me like this? If you have the guts, then kill me. Ji Tianxing frowned and said with a smile, you don't have to provoke me. I definitely won't kill you today. Even if I want to kill you, I won't do it in the sect. Didn't you think you were smart and threw my token into the sword formation? Since that's the case, I'll let you know what it means to be too smart for your own good. I'll make you lose all face and have no face to stay in the Fengyun courtyard. After saying this, Ji Tianxing grabbed Lu Mingyang's collar and snatched his token. Then, he dragged Lu Mingyang like a dead dog and turned around to walk into the golden light barrier. Lu Mingyang was extremely angry and humiliated as he struggled with all his might. However, he was seriously injured and couldn't escape from Ji Tianxing's grasp. Ji Tianxing dragged him into the golden light barrier and was immediately attacked by dozens of golden sword lights. Swish, swish, swish. A total of more than 40 powerful sword lights came from all directions and enveloped the two figures. Ji Tianxing, on the other hand, activated 8 half-meter-long sword chis and formed a sword light net around him. Swish, swish, swish. The sword light net was like a golden light ball with a radius of 3 meters, blocking all the sword lights that came from all directions. Even though this sword formation had been tampered with by Lu Mingyang and its power doubled, it still couldn't hurt Ji Tianxing in the slightest. Ji Tianxing walked to the center of the sword formation and picked up the token from the sand. He threw the seriously injured Lu Mingyang into the sword formation and swaggered out of the sword formation. Lu Mingyang was dumbfounded on the spot. His face was filled with despair as he sat down on the sand. Looking at the swords that were coming at him from all directions, his eyes were filled with terror. Ah! Ji Tianxing! You despicable and vicious bastard! You will die a horrible death! Lu Mingyang roared furiously and desperately waved his palm to block the sword lights that came from all directions. However, the sword formation was too powerful and there were too many sword lights. He couldn't block all of them. Bang, bang, bang! After just a dozen breaths, Lu Mingyang was hit by 3 sword lights and there were 3 more bloody holes in his body. Ji Tianxing stood at the edge of the golden desert and sneered as he watched Lu Mingyang miserably evade the sword light. Lu Mingyang, it was you who was despicable and vicious. You wanted to use the sword formation to harm me. Now that you have such an ending, you reap what you sow, you deserve it. Lu Mingyang suddenly went berserk. He was so angry that he almost lost his mind. He cursed crazily as he ran desperately in the sword formation. He wanted to escape the sword formation and get rid of the sword lights. However, another 20 breaths passed. He was hit by 4 sword lights again and there were 4 more bloody holes in his body that were so deep that his bones could be seen. After being hit repeatedly, Lu Mingyang was so angry that he finally vomited blood and fainted. He fell into the desert with a bang. Dozens of sword lights slashed and were about to cut Lu Mingyang into pieces. At the critical moment, the entire sword formation suddenly stopped operating as if it was shut down by someone. In the blink of an eye, the golden light shield and the sword lights disappeared. The golden desert returned to calm. Only Lu Mingyang, who was covered in blood, was still lying unconscious on the sand. Seeing that the sword formation was shut down, Ji Tianxing frowned. He immediately guessed that Han Qiaosheng must have found that the situation was not good and forcibly shut down the sword formation. You are lucky today. I just taught you a lesson. If you dare to offend me again in the future, I will definitely take your dog life. Ji Tianxing looked at the unconscious Lu Mingyang and snorted coldly. Then, he turned and left. He returned to the high platform and activated the formation on the stone table. A white light door immediately appeared. Swoosh! Ji Tianxing stepped through the white light door and left the mother-child profound formation. He returned to the backyard of the storm courtyard. Chapter 174. In the backyard of the Tempest courtyard, Han Qiaosheng and Du Wu were discussing something in low voices. Suddenly, the mother and child profound formation flashed with a white light. Swish! A youth in a green robe walked out of the formation and arrived in front of the two. There's still half an hour before the time is up. Finally, a disciple passed. Han Qiaosheng and Du Wu immediately stopped their discussion and turned to look at the green-robed youth. When they saw the green-robed youth's appearance, they were startled. Their eyes flashed with astonishment and surprise. Ji Tianxing. Why is it him? He's the first to come out. How is this possible? Han Qiusheng and Du Wu had the same thought in their minds. It was quite unbelievable. At this time, Ji Tianxing walked in front of them. He cupped his hands and bowed before handing over his identity token. Deacons, this is disciples' identity token. Han Qiusheng and Du Wu looked at each other. They suppressed the surprise in their hearts and reached out to take Ji Tianxing's identity token. Han Qiusheng's expression was somewhat complicated. He nodded with a gratified expression and said, Ji Tianxing, you're very good. But you must guard against arrogance and rashness. Continue to cultivate diligently and diligently. Only then can you win glory for our Tempest courtyard. Ji Tianxing smiled and cupped his hands. Thank you for your advice, Deacon Han. Han Qiusheng also smiled and nodded. He let him stand to the side and wait. After about a quarter of an hour, the second disciple finally walked out of the formation and returned to the backyard. This person was actually Nai Hao, which surprised Han Qiusheng and Du Wu. Nai Hao handed over his identity token to Han Qiusheng and walked to Ji Tianxing's side. He smiled and greeted him. Brother Ji, I really didn't expect you to be the first to walk out of the formation. You're first in the alchemy test and first in the array test. Brother Ji, you're so abnormal. How can the others live? Nai Hao smiled and joked. His tone was full of envy. However, Ji Tianxing could feel that Nai Hao was sincerely admiring and happy for him. There was no jealousy. In the last 15 minutes, the other 7 disciples walked out of the mother-child profound formation and returned to the backyard. When everyone found out that the first person to walk out of the array was actually Ji Tianxing, they were stunned on the spot and felt that it was inconceivable. With Han Qiusheng and Du Wu present, the disciples suppressed the shock in their hearts, quietly looking at Ji Tianxing with strange eyes. If that wasn't the case, they would have already started discussing it. Especially Yi Mo and Shi Jingcheng, when they heard that Ji Tianxing won the first place, they were stunned. Previously, they had thought that Ji Tianxing would definitely fail the test and would not be able to walk out of the mother-child profound formation. However, in the end, Ji Tianxing won first place and was the first to walk out of the array. This was a miracle that they could never have imagined and could not believe. Their feelings became extremely complicated. Their gazes towards Ji Tianxing were somewhat evasive, not daring to look directly at Ji Tianxing. Very soon, the 2-hour time limit was up. Other than Han Qiusheng and Du Wu, there were only 9 disciples in the courtyard, only Lu Mingyang did not appear. This result made Du Wu frown, and he could not help but ask, what's going on? Isn't Lu Mingyang proficient in array Dao? Why hasn't he come out yet? The other disciples also found that Lu Mingyang had not yet appeared, and they immediately revealed a playful smile. A disciple quickly said, Deacon Du, just now I was in the array and saw with my own eyes that Lu Mingyang was trapped in the desert. The other 2 disciples also quickly echoed, yes, I saw it too. Lu Mingyang also seems to have suffered a serious injury. Han Qiusheng frowned, seemingly inadvertently glancing at Ji Tianxing. Obviously, he was very clear about what was going on. However, Ji Tianxing pretended not to see Han Qiusheng's gaze. His face was still calm, and he stood calmly in the crowd. Han Qiusheng waved his hands, striking out rays of true essence, and began to control the mother-child profound formation. After a moment, the mother-child profound formation was closed. The 10-meter-wide white light barrier disappeared, revealing the silver and black stone floor. Swoosh! Lu Mingyang, who was covered in blood and seriously injured and unconscious, appeared in front of everyone, lying on the stone floor. Seeing his miserable appearance, several disciples couldn't help but snicker, showing expressions of schadenfreude. If it were not for the presence of the 2 deacons, they would definitely have laughed and started discussing again. Deacon Du, take him down to treat his injuries. Han Qiusheng ordered expressionlessly. Du Wu nodded and quickly took the seriously injured and unconscious Lu Mingyang away. Then, Han Qiusheng announced the results of the assessment. In this array Dao assessment, Lu Mingyang failed. 9 disciples have successfully passed the assessment, and Ji Tianxing is the first. Those who failed the assessment will be punished and continue to clean the storm courtyard for 2 months. The first place, Ji Tianxing, will receive 5 Aquarius spirit fruits as a reward. Hearing this result, the disciples all had complicated expressions on their faces. Some were gloating over Lu Mingyang's punishment, secretly laughing. But even more people looked at Ji Tianxing with eyes full of envy. Han Qiusheng continued with a solemn expression, "Before everyone entered the mother-child profound formation, I have already reminded everyone. The mother-child profound formation has a hidden mystery, and there is an array within an array. Not only must everyone use the array Dao that you have learned in the past half a month, but you must also think and research more to have a chance of winning first place. Although you have been very diligent in the past half a month and have indeed passed the assessment, you have not thought much. You have not been able to draw inferences and truly comprehend the essence of array Dao." Although the assessment was over, Han Qiusheng still admonished and guided everyone as usual. Otherwise, what was the point of this assessment? Han Qiusheng did this not to rank the disciples and prove who was better and who was worse. His original intention was to teach the disciples how to learn and improve through each assessment. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. This was Han Qiusheng's way of teaching the disciples. Not only did he teach the disciples alchemy and array Dao, but he also taught them how to learn and research array Dao and alchemy Dao. As long as these disciples were not idiots, they would definitely be able to comprehend by analogy and apply this learning method to martial arts in the future. Only then would they have great achievements in the future. Seeing that all the disciples were listening attentively and modestly, Han Qiusheng continued to speak. Why was Ji Tianxing able to win first place? Because he did not use the 7 profound formulas to pass the first level. He looked through the surface to see the essence, and he knew to observe and think more. He cracked the array of the first level, found the hidden secret passage, and directly entered the second level. That's why he found the identity token faster than you. Only mediocre people will break through the array step by step. Geniuses see the truth through the fog and take shortcuts to reach the end. I hope everyone will remember this point and apply it to martial arts in the future. Only in this way can you become a real expert. After listening to Han Qiusheng's words, all the disciples learned a lot and understood his good intentions. Yi Mo and Shi Jingcheng were ashamed. They were so ashamed that they could not show their faces. Previously, the two of them could not stand Ji Tianxing and were jealous of him. So they always targeted him and criticized him behind his back. But now, after 2 months of assessment, Ji Tianxing had won first place twice. The two of them were proficient in alchemy, but Ji Tianxing surpassed them with even more dazzling results. In this half a month, the two of them had focused on learning array Dao. Ji Tianxing did not even listen to an array Dao class for a day, but he won first place in the array Dao assessment and even received Han Qiusheng's praise. Ji Tianxing's talent was so outstanding. How could the two of them compare to him? The two of them recalled the words they used to ridicule Ji Tianxing. How could they not be ashamed? From this moment on, the two of them were completely convinced by Ji Tianxing. They no longer dared to provoke or ridicule him. Chapter 175. Everyone was like this. When Ji Tianxing's performance was more outstanding than Yi Mo and Shi Jingcheng's. The two of them would deny his excellence, be jealous of him, and even slander and talk about him behind his back. And when Ji Tianxing was more outstanding than them in all aspects, and even surpassed them in all aspects, they didn't even have the qualifications to be jealous of Ji Tianxing. They could only admire and look up to him. Of course, Yi Mo and Shi Jingcheng were top geniuses from various countries. Even if they were repeatedly defeated by Ji Tianxing and couldn't help but admire Ji Tianxing, they wouldn't be depressed and dispirited. Ji Tianxing's excellence would only arouse their fighting spirit and make them determined to cultivate even harder. At the same time, Han Qiusheng's speech ended and he announced another matter with a solemn expression. Everyone, the formation Dao study and examination will end here. In the next half-month, everyone will cultivate diligently and strive to increase their strength. Next month, there will be a competition between our sect and the Tianjian sect. It will be held at the peak of Dragon Mountain. The outcome of the Dragon Mountain tournament is related to the ownership of the Spirit Vein treasure land in Dragon Mountain. It is extremely important. Because if you can win this tournament, All the resources in the Dragon Mountain will belong to our outer sect for the next 3 years. Hearing the words Dragon Mountain Tournament, the expressions of the disciples changed and they began to whisper to each other. Everyone had been in the Sky-bearing sect for 1.5 months. Many of them understood the situation of the sect and had heard of the Dragon Mountain Tournament. They knew that this tournament was very important. Han Qiusheng continued, "After half a month, I will choose the 5 most outstanding disciples based on your performance in the past 2 months. At that time, the 5 disciples will compete and the 3 most outstanding people will represent our sect in the Dragon Mountain Tournament. If anyone can win honor for our sect will reward them heavily." The disciples were all infected by his words. Their blood surged and their eyes were filled with anticipation. The Wind Cloud Courtyard had 10 disciples, and only 3 were allowed to participate in the Dragon Mountain Tournament. Everyone felt that their chances were very high. As long as they worked hard, they would be able to win the qualification to participate in the competition. Although Ji Tianxing had taken the first place in both the alchemy assessment and the array formation assessment, he was still able to take the first place. However, in this Dragon Mountain Grand Competition, they had to rely on their true strength to win the right to participate. None of them believed that they were inferior to others. They were confident that they could represent the Tempest Academy and the Sky Pillar Sec. After the announcement, Han Qiusheng took out 5 Aquarius spirit fruits and gave them to Ji Tianxing as a reward before leaving. The disciples discussed in 2s and 3s for a while before dispersing. Everyone was aware of the importance of the Dragon Mountain Tournament. They knew that this was a good opportunity to represent their sect and make a name for themselves. Therefore, no one dared to waste any time. After returning to their residences, they began to cultivate intensively, trying their best to increase their strength. Ji Tianxing put away the 5 Aquarius spirit fruits and returned to his room. He also planned to cultivate in seclusion for half a month to refine the last sword vein and try his best to break through to the mystic comprehending realm. However, before cultivating in seclusion, he had to visit 2 people, Ji Ku and Yun Yao. Ji Tianxing left the Wind Cloud Courtyard and entered the Spirit Medicine Hall half an hour later. When he entered Ji Ku's room, he saw Ji Ku standing by the window, staring at the towering tree outside in a daze. "Ku Ku." Ji Tianxing greeted her with a smile and walked towards Ji Ku. Ji Ku came back to her senses and turned her head to look at him. Her charming face immediately revealed a joyful smile. "Big brother Tianxing, why are you here?" Ji Tianxing saw that she was still unable to move, so he helped her back to the bedside and sat down. "Previously, I was busy cultivating in seclusion and didn't have time to visit you. Now that I'm free, I came to see you. Ku Ku, you're finally able to get off the bed and walk around. How are your injuries?" Ji Ku nodded and smiled. "Big brother Tianxing, don't worry. The spirit medicine elder's medical skills are exquisite. He also gave me many spirit pills and miraculous medicines. My injuries have mostly recovered." "That's good." Ji Tianxing was relieved. He said in a gentle tone, "Ku Ku, you can rest here and heal your injuries. It won't take long for your injuries to fully recover." Ji Ku nodded obediently. After hesitating for a moment, she asked in a soft voice, "Big brother Tianxing, my imperial uncle. How is Ji Ling? I heard that he was kicked out of the sect." Ji Tianxing didn't hide it from her and said truthfully, "Ji Ling is already dead." Ji Ku was stunned for a moment. Her expression was a little complicated and emotional. "Dead? That's good too. He would do anything to achieve his goals and became inhumane. He deserved to die." Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "That's right. Ji Ling's heart is vicious and ruthless. He will only harm others if he lives. Death is his final destination." He saw that Ji Ku's mood was a little low, so he chatted with Ji Ku for a while more. An hour later, he waved goodbye to Ji Ku and went up to the 2nd floor of the palace. This palace was for the injured in the sect to recuperate. The ordinary disciples of the inner and outer sect lived on the 1st floor. The rooms on the 2nd floor of the palace were even more spacious, exquisite, and elegant. Only the elite geniuses, deacons, and elders could live in them. At the same time, there were 2 guards guarding the entrance to the 2nd floor. Ordinary people couldn't get close. Ji Tianxing was stopped by the two guards. He showed the Atlas token to the two guards and was allowed to enter. He found Yun Yaro's room. When he walked to the door, he saw two people in the room. Yun Yaro, who was wearing a plain white dress, was leaning against the headboard quietly. Her beautiful face was a little sickly pale. The other person in the room was Bai Wuchen. Bai Wuchen stood by the bed, holding two spirit fruits that were full of spirit energy and flashing with the brilliance of true essence. He was persuading Yun Yaro. Eldest senior sister, these two origin-returning spirit fruits were given to me by the sect master when I made a contribution in the past. I couldn't bear to use them. The effects of the origin-returning spirit fruits are excellent. They can help you heal your injuries and restore your true essence as soon as possible. Eldest senior sister, this is a token of my appreciation. Don't reject it. Quickly accept it. However, Yun Yaro's expression was calm, and no one could see any change in her emotions. She had not recovered from her injuries and was not interested in Bai Wuchen's origin-returning spirit fruits. She shook her head gently and said in a weak voice, "Junior brother Bai, keep it. I've already taken many spirit pills and elixirs. I just need to rest quietly. I don't need any spirit fruits." Bai Wuchen was obviously unwilling. He frowned and wanted to persuade her again. At this moment, Ji Tianxing walked into the room and greeted her with a smile. "Eldest senior sister, I'm here to visit you." Bai Wuchen's body stiffened when he heard his voice. He immediately turned his head to look at him. "Ji Tianxing, why are you here?" Bai Wuchen frowned, and there was confusion in his eyes. Ji Tianxing smiled and said calmly, "Even senior brother Bai knows to visit eldest senior sister. Of course, I have to show some concern for eldest senior sister." As he spoke, he walked to Yun Yaro's bedside and asked about her injuries with concern. Yun Yaro's expression eased a lot. She said a few words to him in a weak voice, indicating that she was fine. Bai Wuchen frowned and stared at Ji Tianxing. He asked again, "Ji Tianxing, this is a forbidden area. You can only enter with the permission of the sect leader or the elders. How did you sneak in?" Ji Tianxing glanced at him and smiled playfully. He took out the Atlas token. "I have the token. Why can't I come in?" "Atlas token?" Bai Wuchen recognized the token. His eyes narrowed, and his face was filled with disbelief. "In our sect, only eldest senior sister and a few of us elite disciples have the Atlas token. How did you get one?" Chapter 176. Bai Wuchen knew the significance of the sky-raising token better than anyone else. Only the 6 most outstanding disciples of the sky-raising sect, who were deeply trusted and valued by the sect leader, could receive the sky-raising token. Now, the 7th sky-raising token had appeared, and it was in the hands of Ji Tianxing, an outer sect disciple. Bai Wuchen could not believe it, and he could not understand it. In his opinion, Ji Tianxing was only in the vital energy realm. He was weak and a new outer sect disciple. He did not have much loyalty or contribution to the sect. Why would the sect leader give him the sky-raising token? Ji Tianxing looked at Bai Wuchen with a faint smile and said indifferently, "The sky-raising token was naturally given to me by the sect leader. As for why the sect leader gave it to me, why don't you ask him, senior brother Bai?" Bai Wuchen frowned, and the corners of his mouth twitched twice. Ask the sect leader? Not to mention whether he had the guts or not, even if he had the guts to ask the sect leader would definitely not explain it to him. The atmosphere was a little awkward, and Bai Wuchen's expression was unnatural. At this moment, Yun Yaro changed the topic, temporarily alleviating Bai Wuchen's embarrassment. She looked at Ji Tianxing and asked calmly, "Junior brother Tianxing, the Longshan tournament will be held next month. Has Deacon Han decided on the candidates to participate in the tournament?" Ji Tianxing shook his head. "Not yet. Deacon Han said that he will select 5 disciples at the end of the month. After the competition and inspection, he will select 3 to participate in the tournament." As soon as he finished speaking, Bai Wuchen said with a smile, "In my opinion, there are very few disciples who are qualified to represent the outer sect. Lu Mingyang is one of them. He was originally an inner sect disciple. Although he was demoted to the outer sect, His strength did not drop. He is still in the metaphysic realm. He is ranked first in the Fengyun Academy. One of the 3 spots in the Longshan tournament will belong to him. At this point, Bai Wuchen sized up Ji Tianxing and said with a smile, "As for you, I'm afraid you're still far from being able to represent our sect against the Tianjian sect." Ji Tianxing didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled back at him and replied, "Whether or not Lu Mingyang's strength is number 1 in the Storm Courtyard isn't something that senior brother Bai can say with his mouth. As for whether or not I can win the right to participate in the Dragon Mountain tournament, we'll know at the end of the month. Senior brother Bai, it's too early to make a conclusion." Bai Wuchen did not retort, but the look in his eyes became even more mocking. Ji Tianxing no longer paid attention to him. He stared at Yun Yarrow and asked, "Eldest senior sister, why are you suddenly concerned about the matters of the outer sect?" Yun Yarrow nodded slightly and said seriously, "Yesterday, I went to report the situation of the demon race to Master. After that, Master told me something. Yesterday, the Tianjian sect's sect master sent a letter to Master. In the letter, the Tianjian sect's sect master said that they've already selected a few of their most outstanding outer sect disciples. They want to enter the Sky Pillar sect and have an exchange with our outer sect's genius disciples. This way, not only will we be able to enhance the friendship between our 2 sects, but we'll also be able to exchange pointers with each other." After hearing Yun Yarrow's words, Ji Tianxing immediately frowned. "There's actually such a thing? I've never heard Deacon Han mention it." He thought for a moment and asked, "Eldest senior sister, before the Dragon Mountain tournament, does the Tianjian sect always send disciples to our sect to exchange pointers?" Yun Yarrow shook her head and said, "That's not the case. It's just that the Tianjian sect's sect master personally sent a letter to the sect master, raising this request and idea." The sect master agreed. "As for how many of the Tianjian sect's outer sect disciples will come and when they'll arrive, I'm not sure for the time being. Perhaps they'll arrive in a few days. In short, when the Tianjian sect's disciples arrive at our sect, junior brother Tianxing, you should pay more attention. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll be victorious in every battle." Obviously, Yun Yarrow was reminding Ji Tianxing to seize the opportunity. Ji Tianxing listened carefully to her advice and nodded calmly. "Thank you for your advice, eldest senior sister. I'll definitely pay more attention." "Yen, that's good." Yun Yarrow nodded slightly, her eyes flashing with anticipation and gratification. Bai Wuchen stood to the side and coldly watched the 2 of them discuss the Dragon Mountain tournament. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. With Ji Tianxing's strength, he's definitely not qualified to participate in the tournament. What's the use of paying attention to the Tianjian sect's disciples? However, with Yun Yarrow present, he could only think these words in his heart. He definitely wouldn't say it out loud, as it would make things too embarrassing. After that, Ji Tianxing chatted with Yun Yarrow for a while. Seeing that Yun Yarrow's injuries were not serious for the time being and that she would recover in a month, he was really relieved. He cupped his hands and bowed to Yun Yarrow. Then, he turned and left the room. After he left, Bai Wuchen revealed a look of disdain and muttered in a low voice, "The outer court disciples that the Sky Sword sect sent to our sect for the exchange are all genius experts recruited from the Yong'an region. I'm afraid that each of those disciples has the strength of the metaphysic realm. How can Ji Tianxing's strength be their match? If the Fengyun Academy sends Ji Tianxing to fight, I'm afraid that Longshan will be lost again. The next 3 years will still belong to the Tianjian sect." Yun Yarrow had long seen Bai Wuchen's dissatisfaction with Ji Tianxing. The 2 of them quarreled whenever they met, which often gave her a headache. After thinking for a while, Yun Yarrow said to Bai Wuchen with a serious expression, "Junior brother Bai, Ji Tianxing must have his own strengths to be able to get the Atlas token from the sect master. He's obviously also valued and cultivated by the sect master. Although he's only in the true energy realm for the time being, he's still cultivating in the outer sect. However, when he enters the inner sect in the future, his strength and status will be the same as ours. We still need to take care of each other. Junior brother Bai, try not to make things difficult for him, so as not to cause unnecessary trouble and make the sect master unhappy." Bai Wuchen also understood the meaning of the Atlas token, so he naturally wouldn't refute Yunyao. He just responded with a calm expression. Eldest senior sister is right. I will remember. Although he said that he would remember, his impression of Ji Tianxing was still very bad. Ji Tianxing walked down the second floor of the palace and returned to the hall on the first floor. When he saw Bai Wuchen fawning over Yun Yao earlier, he remembered that there were still 5 Aquarius spirit fruits in his 100 treasures brocade pouch. When he went to visit Ji Ku previously, he had forgotten about this matter. Now that he remembered this matter, Ji Tianxing went straight to Ji Ku's room. He wanted to give all 5 Aquarius spirit fruits to Ji Ku to help her heal and recover her strength. However, when Ji Tianxing walked to the door of Ji Ku's room, he heard voices coming from inside. Apart from Ji Ku, there was another person in the room who was whispering to Ji Ku. That person's back was facing the door, so Ji Tianxing couldn't see his face clearly. However, Ji Tianxing could tell from the person's back and build that he was a young man. 6th update, please recommend me. Chapter 177. The young man who was talking to Ji Ku in a low voice made Ji Tianxing feel that he was a stranger. He had never seen him before. Ji Tianxing was a little puzzled, so he stood at the door and listened to the conversation between the two. The young man said to Ji Ku, "Junior sister Ji Ku, your injuries have mostly recovered, but you still need half a month to recuperate from your internal injuries. The medicine elder has given you another prescription today. I will help you decoct the medicine tomorrow. You just need to take it for half a month and your injuries will be completely healed." Ji Ku nodded and smiled faintly. "Thank you, senior brother Su Qin. Thank you for taking care of me for the past half a month. Otherwise, my injuries would not have recovered so quickly." The young man called Su Qin waved his hand and said in a friendly tone, "Junior sister Ji Ku is too polite. I am the medicine elder's disciple and also the medicine master of the spirit medicine hall. Decocting medicine for everyone is my duty." After a pause, Su Qin probed, "Junior sister Ji Ku, you have been living in the spirit medicine hall for more than half a month now. You have some understanding of the medicine elder. Junior sister, have you thought about the matter I mentioned to you last time?" Ji Ku pondered for a moment and said hesitantly, "Senior brother Su Qin, please give me more time. I still need to think about it. The Spirit Medicine Hall is an important place in the sect. The Medicine Elder is a highly respected medicine king who can bring people back to life. I am afraid that my aptitude is not good enough and I will fail to live up to the Medicine Elder's expectations." Su Qin laughed kindly and quickly persuaded, "Junior sister Ji Ku, you worry too much. All the disciples in the sect know about the Medicine Elder's temperament. He is the most gentle and benevolent elder. He has always been kind and benevolent to the disciples in the sect. Junior sister, if you come to the Spirit Medicine Hall, you will feel relaxed and at ease. You will not be as nervous and competitive as you were in the White Dew Courtyard. Medicine Elder has said several times that when he sees you, junior sister, it's like seeing his own granddaughter. There's a kind of fate that makes him want to take you as his disciple and teach you the Tao of alchemy." Upon hearing Su Qin's words, Ji Ku was a little flustered. He waved his hand and said, "Senior brother Su Qin, don't misunderstand. These days, Medicine Elder's care and concern for me is engraved in my heart. I am also very grateful to him. I'm just afraid that my aptitude is too low and I don't have any talent in the Tao of alchemy. If I become the Medicine Elder's disciple, I'll embarrass him in the future." Su Qin seemed to have long expected that she would say this. He smiled lightly and said, "Junior sister, you can rest assured. Since Elder Yarrow wants to take you in as a disciple and teach you the Tao of alchemy, he must have already seen that your spirit root is not shallow and that you have extraordinary talent in alchemy. What's more, with the Medicine Elder's attainments in alchemy and cultivation, even a stubborn rock can be taught by him into a qualified alchemist." Seeing that Ji Ku was silent and seemed to be still hesitating, Su Qin continued to speak. "Although I know that junior sister is wholeheartedly devoted to the martial Tao and wants to become a martial Tao expert. If I let you leave White Dew Courtyard and come to the Spirit Medicine Hall to learn alchemy, it will indeed delay your martial Tao cultivation. However, if junior sister can become a grandmaster of alchemy, you can refine countless spirit pills and miraculous medicines. Who knows how many people you can save? That's a great merit. Just like me, I was born to like peace and quiet. I hate playing with swords and spears, fighting and killing. Therefore, I chose to concentrate on cultivating alchemy, practicing medicine to help the world, and practicing medicine to save people. In short, junior sister, if you've thought it through, I'll tell master about this matter. What do you think? Jiku was silent for a moment before she frowned and said, Senior brother Suqin, don't be anxious. I still need to discuss this matter with big brother Tianxing and let him help me decide. Big brother Tianxing? Junior sister, is he your elder brother? Suqin was stunned for a moment before he smiled and nodded. That's good too. Such an important matter should indeed be discussed with elder brother. In that case, I'll take my leave first. I'll come to see you tomorrow after I've finished brewing the medicine. After saying that, Suqin cupped his hands and bade farewell to Jiku before he turned and left. Ji Tianxing had already quietly hidden in the room next door. He only appeared after Suqin left. He walked into Jiku's room and saw Jiku standing by the window. She was staring at the towering tree outside in a daze. Cuckoo. Ji Tianxing greeted her with a smile. He walked to Jiku's side and asked, Why are you standing by the window in a daze again? What are you thinking about? Big brother Tianxing, why are you back again? Jiku smiled and pulled his arm, saying, But you came back just in time. I was looking for you for something. Ji Tianxing pinched her little face and asked with a smile, Do you want to join the Spirit Medicine Hall to learn alchemy? Do you want me to give you an idea? Huh? Jiku was stunned for a moment. She pouted and said, Did you hear what I said to senior brother Suqin just now? Yes. Ji Tianxing nodded and explained, But I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I just happened to hear it. Jiku obviously didn't care about this. She looked up at him and asked seriously, Big brother Tianxing, what do you think? Ji Tianxing thought for a moment and nodded. I think that Suqin's words make sense. It's said that the spirit medicine elder is the kindest and most popular elder in the sect. I've seen the medicine elder with my own eyes. It's true. Cuckoo, if you join the medicine elder and learn alchemy, it'll be an enviable blessing. With the medicine elder's attainments in alchemy and your intelligence, your future achievements will definitely be extraordinary. Jiku naturally knew how enviable it was to be able to join the spirit medicine elder and learn alchemy. However, she hesitated for a moment before asking the question that she was truly worried about. Big brother Tianxing, if I stay in the Spirit Medicine Hall, will it be difficult for us to see each other in the future? Silly girl. Ji Tianxing scratched her little nose and said with a smile, The sect master gave me the Sky Atlas token. I can enter and leave the sect at will. I'll come to see you often in the future. That's great. Thank you, big brother Tianxing. Jiku nodded repeatedly. The hesitation and worry in her heart finally dissipated. She calmed down and was silent for a while. Then, she continued, Big brother Tianxing, ever since the incident last time, I've been thinking about some questions. Do the members of the royal family really not have any kinship? Can a martial artist become deranged and inhumane in order to pursue a better future and stronger martial strength? If the price of becoming a martial artist is to become cold-blooded, heartless, despicable, and vicious, then I'd rather not become a martial artist. At this point, a trace of sadness appeared in her clear eyes. She was somewhat disheartened. Ji Tianxing understood why she had such thoughts. He patted her shoulder gently and comforted her. Cuckoo, I know that you can't let go of that incident and you almost lost your life. But not everyone is as cold-blooded, heartless, despicable, and vicious as Ji Ling. His dantian was damaged when he was young and he was labeled as trash. That's why his mind was distorted and he became so deranged. Most people are normal and kind. Just like Nai Hao and this Suqin we know. They're all enthusiastic, cheerful, and positive youths. At this point, he put his hands on Jiku's shoulders and smiled encouragingly. In short, if you're disheartened about martial arts, then join the Spirit Medicine Hall and focus on learning alchemy. I hope you can forget about that incident as soon as possible and return to being the mischievous, lively, and cute little princess you used to be. Chapter 178. After Ji Tianxing's persuasion, Jiku finally made up her mind to join the spiritual medicine hall. After the discussion, Ji Tianxing gave her 5 Aquarius spirit fruits to help her recuperate. After that, Ji Tianxing left the spiritual medicine hall and returned to the Fengyun courtyard. Night had fallen and it was time to light the lanterns. The Fengyun courtyard was quiet and there were no lights on in the disciples' rooms. Ji Tianxing guessed that those disciples must be in secluded cultivation. They must be working hard in order to prepare for the Dragon Mountain tournament. After returning to his room, he entered the secret chamber and started cultivating in seclusion. His goal was to refine the 9th sword vein and break through to the mystic comprehending realm. Although the 9th level of the true energy realm was only 1 step away from the mystic comprehending realm, the gap was huge. True energy realm martial artists could only infuse their true energy into their palms or weapons to form palm shadows and sword radiance. True energy could not leave their bodies. But mystic comprehending realm martial artists were different. Their true energy was more vigorous and could condense into a substance. For example, a fist radiance condensed from true energy could be released from their fists or sword radiance condensed from true energy. They could attack and kill from a distance and were more powerful. Furthermore, mystic comprehending realm martial artists could release their true energy outside their body and condense it into a shield to protect themselves from fatal injuries. Of course, this method consumed a lot of true energy. Even experts above the 5th level of the true energy realm would not use it easily. In addition, mystic comprehending realm martial artists could condense their thoughts into spiritual consciousness. The soul sense was formless and intangible, invisible and untouchable, but it had all kinds of unexpected magical uses. Ji Tianxing calculated in his heart, with my current strength and sword heart path, I can unleash the combat power of a 3rd level mystic comprehending realm martial artist. If I use the Black Dragon Sword, I can defeat a 4th level mystic comprehending realm martial artist. I'm only at the 9th level of the true energy realm, but I already have such powerful combat power. If I can break through to the mystic comprehending realm, my combat power will increase by several times. At that time, I can even defeat a 5th level mystic comprehending realm martial artist. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing's heart was filled with anticipation. His desire to reach Tongxian realm grew even stronger. He sat cross-legged in the middle of the spirit-gathering array, circulating the 3rd level of the path of the sword. He absorbed the yuan qi of heaven and earth and refined the sword vein with all his strength. In order to speed up his cultivation, he also took 4 spirit fruits and 5 true elemental dons. This was half of his monthly allowance. If he used it for his daily cultivation, it could last him for at least 10 days. Ji Tianxing focused on cultivating. With the help of the spirit fruits and pills, he continued to refine the 9th sword vein. As time passed, his 9th dark red meridian gradually turned golden. At the same time, his strength was also growing silently, constantly becoming stronger. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days passed. After a total of 5 days, Ji Tianxing had completely refined the medicinal efficacy of the spirit fruit and pills. However, he was still unable to refine the 9th sword vein. 2/3 of his 9th meridian had turned golden, and the remaining 1/3 was still dark red. Ji Tianxing wanted to refine the sword vein in one go, so he took all the remaining pills in the 100 treasures brocade pouch. A few spirit fruits, true elemental dons, and a mystic gold secret elixir all burst forth with boundless essence energy in his body, surging like a river. Ji Tianxing silently endured the impact of the boundless medicinal efficacy and continued to refine the 9th sword vein. Unknowingly, another 2 days passed. At this point, he had been cultivating in seclusion for 7 days. He had also used up all the spirit fruits, pills, and other resources he had. Fortunately, his efforts were greatly rewarded. The 9th meridian finally turned pure gold, successfully refining into a sword vein. Now, Ji Tianxing's 9 main meridians had all become sword veins. The true elemental dons in his body also went berserk, surging like a torrential flood in the sword vein. When the true elemental dons surged wildly, it actually gave off a faint rumbling sound, like rolling thunder. Ji Tianxing knew that the critical moment had arrived. He had already reached the limit of true elemental realm level 9 and was about to break through the bottleneck to the mystic comprehending realm. For an ordinary true elemental realm martial artist, the true elemental dantian would condense into a cyclone and spin continuously. After reaching the mystic comprehending realm, the true elemental dantian cyclone would condense into liquid true elemental dans and become elemental dans. Ji Tianxing's situation was different. He did not have a dantian, only a sword embryo. Currently, his sword embryo was a small golden sword. It was just a shadow of a golden sword. However, he had reached the limit of the true elemental realm. The boundless true elemental dans in the 9 sword veins madly converged into the sword embryo. The golden sword shadow contained an endless amount of true elemental dans and became more and more solid, gradually turning into a substantial golden sword. This process was the transition from the true elemental realm to the mystic comprehending realm. Ordinary martial artists condensed their true elemental dans into water droplets, but for Ji Tianxing, the sword embryo shadow condensed into a substantial form. Time flew by, and the night passed quickly. The sword embryo shadow finally completed its transformation and completely turned into a substantial golden sword. At the same time, his willpower also completed its transformation and condensed into spiritual awareness. Ji Tianxing had finally broken through to the mystic comprehending realm. At this moment, he was a little excited, and a gratified expression appeared on his face. He circulated his qi and regulated his breathing for another hour before he ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. This is great. It's finally done. I have completed the 3rd level of the path of the sword. I have finally broken through to the mystic comprehending realm. In order to confirm this result, he walked to the corner of the secret room and pressed his hand on the psychic pillar's veins. A boundless amount of elemental dans burst forth from his palm. The black veins on the psychic pillar immediately lit up with a golden glow. The golden glow represented the mystic comprehending realm. When one of the veins lit up, it represented the 1st level of the mystic comprehending realm. Ji Tianxing retracted his hand with satisfaction and muttered softly, "I have reached the mystic comprehending realm. Next, I will have to cultivate the 4th level of the path of the sword to continue improving my strength. It's time to take a look at the Kenshin tomb." He sat cross-legged in the secret room and focused his willpower on the black hole behind the sword embryo. Swoosh! Ji Tianxing's willpower entered the Kenshin tomb and came to a dark and cold space. He floated in the sky above the wasteland. After making sure of the direction, he floated forward. In a short while, he arrived at the bottom of the towering sword stele. He could feel that the gigantic, pitch-black sword stele had become more powerful and domineering. The spirit chi surrounding the sword stele had also become more boundless. Obviously, the sword soul in the burial of heaven had gained a lot from devouring the witch and the high priest's powers. Ji Tianxing sized up the sword stele and walked toward the tombstones on the left side of the sword stele. He walked closer to the tombstone and saw that the words on the 3rd tombstone had disappeared. Just like before, the words on the 3rd tombstone disappeared after I completed the 3rd level of the path of the sword. He muttered to himself. He looked at the 4th tombstone and carefully observed the 4th level of the path of the sword. Soon, he understood the gist of the 4th level of the path of the sword. He needed to temper the 72 acupoints in his body. He memorized the words on the tombstone and left the Kenshin tomb. Chapter 179. At the peak of Red Cloud Peak, Sky Pillar Hall. It was early in the morning, and Sect Master Chu Tianxing was discussing matters with the elders in the hall. Chu Tianxing sat on the throne at the head of the hall, listening to the elders' reports with a dignified expression. After the elders of the various halls finished their reports, he gave the corresponding opinions and gave a few orders after careful consideration. It didn't take long for the meeting to end, and all the elders took their leave. Once all the elders had left, the outer sect elder Chu Huaishan stayed behind. Chu Tianxing's gaze fell on him and he asked, "Elder Chu, you stayed behind alone. Do you have something to report?" Chu Huaishan cupped his hands and nodded, "Yes, this subordinate has something important to report to Sect Master." Early this morning, the Tianjian sect's outer sect deacon arrived with 3 disciples. This subordinate has already arranged for them to stay in Green Pine Courtyard. Chu Tianxing raised his eyebrows and nodded slightly. That's good. Elder Chu, you are in charge of this matter. Treat them well and don't damage the reputation of our Sky Pillar sect. In addition, send someone to secretly keep an eye on them. Don't let them cause any trouble or disturbances. Understood. Chu Huaishan cupped his hands and accepted the order. After hesitating for a moment, he couldn't help but ask, the Tianjian sect's master suddenly proposed to send a disciple to our sect for an exchange. Sect master, you clearly guessed that the Tianjian sect was up to no good and had other plans. Why did you agree to this matter? Chu Tianxing's lips curled into a playful smile, and he said in a dignified tone, that's right. This king and the Tianjian sect's master have been dealing with each other for hundreds of years. Of course, I know that his ambitions are not small and that he has other plans. But today is different from the past. In the past 3 years, the Tianjian sect has occupied Dragon Mountain and seized a large amount of cultivation resources. They have developed and grown very quickly. The Tianjian sect's people went to the Yong'an region to recruit geniuses from all over the world. It is said that they have discovered another top genius this year. Since the Tianjian sect's master sent a new disciple to show off, this king wants to see how talented the Tianjian sect's newly recruited top genius is. Chu Huaishan quickly took out a list of names from his sleeve and handed it over to Chu Tianxing. Sect leader, this is the information on the 3 genius disciples of the Tianjian sect. Please take a look. I've secretly observed that the 3 disciples who came to our sect for the exchange this time are all young people with outstanding aptitude. Their strength has reached the mystic comprehending realm, and they all came from the Yong'an region. Seeing Chu Tianxing looking down at the register, Chu Huaishan took the initiative to introduce. The names of these 3 disciples are Hang Chen, Ran Donglai, and Yin Feiyang. Ran Donglai's strength has reached LV2 Tongxian realm. He was born in the Yong'an region's aristocratic family of swordsmanship. Yin Feiyang's strength has reached LV3 Tongxian realm. He was born in the royal family of a kingdom in the Yong'an region. As for Hang Chen, he's the strongest and has already reached the 5th level of the mystic enlightening stage. His talent is also the most outstanding. He is the top genius that the Tianjian sect has discovered this year. According to this subordinate's investigation, Hang Chen was originally a disciple of a third-rate sect in the Yong'an region, but he was not welcomed in the sect and was ostracized and suppressed everywhere. Hearing this, Chu Tianxing raised his eyebrows. Obviously, he was interested. He put down the register in his hand and looked at Chu Huaishan with interest. Since Hang Chen is a top genius, why is he in a third-rate sect? Why is he ostracized and suppressed everywhere? Chu Huaishan hurriedly explained, that third-rate sect mainly studies array Dao. However, the number of experts in the sect has withered, and many other sects have secretly ostracized and attacked them. The territory and resources they own are getting smaller and smaller, and they are on the verge of disbandment and extinction. Hang Chen has the fighting sword bloodline, and his talent in swordsmanship is extremely outstanding. However, his talent in array Dao is very mediocre and can even be called stupid. Moreover, he has a murderous aura and is extremely aggressive. He often beats up and humiliates the disciples in the sect, which is why he is ostracized and suppressed by his peers. Since he can't bully the disciples in the sect, Hang Chen causes trouble outside the sect and fights with the disciples of other sects. Because of this, Hang Chen made many enemies of the third-rate sect. In the end, the other sects found an excuse to join forces and destroy the third-rate sect. Hearing this, even Chu Tianxing, the sect leader, couldn't help but frown and reveal a playful smile. Haha, a mere disciple at the 5th level of the Tongxian realm can bring disaster to the sect. This man is a star of misfortune. Chu Huaishan shook his head and said with a serious expression, Sect Master, Hang Chen has the fighting sword bloodline, but he joined a third-rate array sect. This is like casting pearls before swine. It will delay his cultivation time. In the third-rate sect, his talent can't be developed and cultivated, so he became a star of misfortune. However, the Tianjian sect is very powerful. Unlike that third-rate sect, it can accommodate Hang Chen and cultivate him into a top genius. Chu Tianxing smiled and nodded. That's true. Martial arts geniuses always have all kinds of eccentricities and are different from ordinary people. Only a large sect can tolerate and control them. Elder Chu, please continue. Chu Huaishan continued, after that third-rate sect was destroyed, Hang Chen not only escaped from the siege, but also stole the sect's treasures and fled in the Yong'an region to avoid being hunted down. It just so happened that the Tianjian sect went to the Yong'an region to recruit new disciples. Hang Chen found an opportunity to participate in the Tianjian sect's entrance competition and won first place in the Tianjian sect. After this man entered the sect, his fighting sword bloodline was developed. The Tianjian sect not only helped him to stimulate his bloodline talent, but also gave him a lot of treasures and cultivation methods. The Tianjian sect's leader even accepted him as a disciple and personally taught him swordsmanship. Obviously, he has high hopes for him. Chu Tiansheng frowned and said in a deep voice, "The fighting sword bloodline is a rare top black level bloodline. It's even more powerful than the black sword bloodline. Almost all the geniuses of the 10 nations in the Tianchen region have joined our sect. For the Tianjian sect, a young martial artist with the fighting sword bloodline is indeed worthy of being nurtured." At the mention of the bloodline grade, Chu Huaishan smiled proudly and nodded in agreement. Yes, most of the geniuses in the Tianchen region are in our sect. There aren't many real geniuses in the Tianjian sect. It's ridiculous that a fighting sword bloodline can make the Tianjian sect's leader accept him as a disciple. Although the fighting sword bloodline is rare, it's only a black level bloodline. Our chief disciple, Yun Yarrow, has the heaven-level heavenly spirit sacred body bloodline. A black-level bloodline can only give Hang Chen a 90% chance of reaching the origin core realm. But Yun Yarrow's heavenly spirit sacred body can make her reach the heaven origin realm. Within 10 years at most, our sect will have a third heaven origin realm expert. How can the Tianjian sect compare to our sect? Chapter 180. As long as Yun Yarrow was mentioned, the deacons and elders of the Sky Pillar sect were full of pride. After all, she was the undisputed #1 genius of the Tianchen region. She had the legendary heavenly bloodline and divine body. She had reached the origin core stage at the age of 19. She had once defeated the elites of the 7 sects on the star platform. She also, the glory and honor Yun Yarrow had created couldn't be described for 3 days and 3 nights. In short, she was a super genius that all the geniuses in the Tianchen region could only look up to and feel despair. Hang Chen, the new disciple of the Tianjian sect, was talented and had excellent martial arts aptitude. But compared to Yun Yarrow, there was a difference between heaven and earth. They couldn't be compared at all. Chu Tiansheng was also proud of this. But he frowned and said in a deep voice, "Elder Chu, Hang Chen can't be compared to Yun Yarrow. But Yun Yarrow is the chief disciple of the Tianjian sect. Hang Chen is just a new outer disciple of the Tianjian sect. Only the disciples of the Fengyun courtyard can participate in this Longshan tournament. They must defeat Hang Chen and take back Longshan for the sect. The Tianjian sect has occupied Longshan for 3 years. In these 3 years, they have developed very quickly. We can only win this Longshan tournament. We can't lose." Chu Tiansheng's face was solemn and his tone was serious. This was a death order for Chu Huaishan. After all, this Longshan tournament was not only related to the ownership of Longshan, but also the face of the Tianjian sect. Chu Huaishan frowned and felt a little embarrassed. "Sect Master, although the 10 new disciples of the Fengyun courtyard are excellent, compared to Hang Chen, I'm afraid they are still slightly inferior. The strongest disciple of the Fengyun courtyard, Lu Mingyang, is only at the first stage of the Tongxian realm. Not to mention defeating Hang Chen, it's unknown whether he can deal with Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai." Chu Tiansheng also understood this point. His face became more serious, and his eyes flashed. "Deacon Han of the Fengyun courtyard, have you decided the disciples who will participate in the tournament?" Chu Huaishan shook his head and said expressionlessly, "I haven't decided." "What instructions do you have?" Chu Tiansheng's tone was solemn as he said, "Then let Han Qiaosheng decide on the candidates as soon as possible." "Understood." Chu Huaishan could only cup his fists in salute and take his leave. He returned to the outer sect to relay his orders. In the storm courtyard, Ji Tianxing sat in his room, pondering over the 4th level of the Sword Heart Dao. Now that he had reached Tongxian Realm Tier 1, if he wanted to raise his strength further, he would have to refine his 72 apertures. The human body had 9 main meridians. They were like 9 interconnected channels that allowed true essence to circulate and circulate. Each meridian had 8 acupoints, which were like nodes on a passageway. If the aperture acupoints were damaged or sealed, it would block the meridians and affect the flow of true essence. If the acupuncture points were tempered and strengthened, it could further strengthen the meridians and hold more Jin Yuan. Moreover, it could accelerate the flow of Jin Yuan and increase its power. Ji Tianxing understood these principles, but he also knew that refining acupoints was much more difficult than refining meridians. After all, aperture acupoints were very small and hidden, even more fragile than meridians. If he wanted to refine aperture acupoints, he had to control his Jin Yuan to the finest detail. Just as Ji Tianxing was lost in thought, he suddenly heard the bell ringing in the main hall. He came back to his senses and hurriedly collected his thoughts. He walked out of his room and hurried to the main hall. The disciples of the storm courtyard were all awakened and hurried to the main hall. In a short while, all 10 disciples had gathered. After 8 days of secluded cultivation, everyone's strength had obviously increased. Everyone knew that Han Qiusheng had gathered everyone in the main hall today to decide the participants of the Dragon Mountain tournament. Thinking of this, everyone was filled with confidence and anticipation. Soon, Han Qiusheng and Du Wu walked into the main hall and stood at the head of the table. The 2 deacons' expressions were somewhat grave, and there was a hint of worry between their brows. When the disciples noticed this, they were somewhat puzzled and had a bad premonition. Han Qiusheng calmly swept his gaze over the crowd and said in a solemn tone, "Today, I have gathered everyone here to announce a piece of news. 3 disciples of the Tianjian sect have arrived at our sect and are now living in Pine Courtyard. Those 3 disciples have all reached the profound understanding realm, and the weakest disciple is at the 2nd stage of the profound understanding realm." Hearing this news, all the disciples were stunned, their faces full of shock. The confidence and anticipation in everyone's hearts immediately vanished and turned into shock and doubt. Several disciples couldn't help but discuss it, and some even asked Han Qiusheng, "Deacon Han, how could this be? The 3 disciples sent by the Tianjian sect are all at the profound understanding realm? Then how are we going to fight? It's impossible for a Jin Yuan realm cultivator to defeat a profound understanding realm cultivator. Doesn't that mean our sect will lose? Shouldn't a profound understanding realm disciple enter the inner sect? Why are they still in the outer sect? Deacon Han, the Tianjian sect isn't making inner sect disciples pretend to be outer sect disciples, is it?" Everyone was puzzled, and they were somewhat angry. Du Wu raised his hand to signal everyone to be quiet, and explained angrily, "It's normal for you to have such doubts. The Tianjian sect is indeed suspected of cheating this time. Those 3 disciples are indeed new disciples of the Tianjian sect. They should have entered the inner sect directly, but the Tianjian sect deliberately let them stay in the outer sect for this Longshan competition." Han Qiusheng nodded and said in a dignified tone, "This is beyond my expectations. I didn't expect the Tianjian sect to be so despicable as to use such a method. Originally, I was going to choose a place to participate in the competition today. But in this case, I won't choose. Everyone is free to choose, and I won't force you. Who is willing to represent the Fengyun courtyard and participate in the Longshan competition? Please stand up." Obviously, the Tianjian sect's actions had caught Han Qiusheng off guard and made him feel helpless. Several disciples were full of indignation and cursed the Tianjian sect in a low voice, but no one took the initiative to stand up. Even Lu Mingyang, who appeared to be the strongest, was hesitant, weighing the pros and cons with a complicated expression. At this moment, Ji Tianxing calmly took 2 steps forward and stepped forward. "Deacon Han, this disciple is willing to fight for our sect." He saluted Han Qiusheng and said in a firm tone. Before Han Qiusheng could speak, the disciples saw that he had taken the initiative to fight, and immediately began to discuss. "Ji Tianxing, when you entered the sect, you were only at LV5 True Element Realm. Even if you cultivated hard for 2 months, You're still at LV7 true element realm at most. How can you fight against a Tongxian realm master? Sigh, although I admire your courage, this isn't bravery. You're just asking for humiliation. Several disciples shook their heads. They didn't have the slightest bit of hope for Ji Tianxing. Naihao's face was also full of worry, and he hurriedly tried to dissuade him. Brother Ji, don't be impulsive. This matter needs to be considered at length. Please recommend me. Chapter 181. While the disciples were discussing, Lu Mingyang also walked out of the crowd. He took 2 steps forward, bowed to Han Qiusheng, and said in a sonorous tone, Deacon Han, disciple is willing to fight on behalf of our sect. Han Qiusheng nodded slightly and did not say anything. He had expected this. Among the 10 disciples of Fengyun School, Lu Mingyang was the strongest. If he did not fight, then there was no one else in Fengyun School. Lu Mingyang glanced at Ji Tianxing beside him and said contemptuously, Ji Tianxing, only I can deal with the disciples of the Tianjian sect. You're only in the true energy realm. Don't make a fool of yourself. Although he had been beaten up by Ji Tianxing in the mother and child profound formation, he knew that Lu Mingyang was not a fool. Even if Ji Tianxing was only in the true energy realm, he could defeat a Tongxian realm master. However, only he and Ji Tianxing knew about that. Now, in front of the 2 deacons and the disciples, he had to take the opportunity to ridicule Ji Tianxing. When the disciples heard Lu Mingyang's words, they nodded in agreement. Yes, Lu Mingyang is in the Tongxian realm. Only he has a chance to defeat the disciples of the Tianjian sect. Ji Tianxing's courage is commendable, but the ending will be miserable. This is a very important matter. Ji Tianxing is too reckless. Ji Tianxing ignored the discussion of the disciples and looked at Lu Mingyang indifferently. A playful smile appeared on his face. Lu Mingyang, have you forgotten the pain after the scar healed? Lu Mingyang's expression suddenly changed, and the corners of his mouth twitched a few times. He was full of anger and wanted to explode, but he held it in. Ji Tianxing looked at Han Qiusheng and said seriously, Deacon Han, just last night, disciple has successfully broken through to the Tongxian realm. Han Qiusheng had been thinking with a dignified expression and had not made a conclusion. When he heard Ji Tianxing's words, his expression eased a lot, and a touch of relief flashed in his eyes. Very good. The disciples were surprised, and they exclaimed in disbelief and began to discuss among themselves. What? Ji Tianxing has reached the Tongxian realm? How is this possible? He was only at the 5th level of the true element stage when he entered the sect. In less than 2 months, he broke through from the 5th level of the true energy stage to the mystic comprehending stage. Isn't this too unbelievable? I don't believe this is true. How can there be a genius who can improve so quickly? Ji Tianxing, don't tell me you're lying. Are you puffing yourself up at your own cost? Everyone was shocked and incredulous, but they also had some doubts. Ji Tianxing couldn't be bothered to explain. He turned around and walked towards the psychic stone pillar in the corner of the hall. He stretched out his hand and pressed it against the stone pillar. As the majestic true essence gushed out of his palm, the black lines on the stone pillar immediately lit up with a golden light. Everyone turned their heads to look at the psychic pillar. When they saw the golden light, their expressions immediately changed. He is indeed at level 1 of Tongxian realm. Unbelievable. Ji Tianxing, this fellow is really a freak. He took first place in both the Pill Dao and Array Dao exams. Even the speed of his strength improvement is unbelievable. This guy is really a monster. Sigh, we are still trying our best to break through to the Tongxian realm for the inner sect exam in 4 months. He has already achieved his goal. The facts proved that Ji Tianxing had indeed broken through to the Tongxian realm and became one of the 2 strongest disciples in the Storm Hall. Lu Mingyang's expression was somewhat ugly. He secretly clenched his fists and pursed his lips, not saying a word. The other disciples no longer doubted Ji Tianxing. Instead, they were filled with envy and admiration. From all aspects, Ji Tianxing's talent far surpassed theirs. They could only look up to him. The disciples discussed for a while before gradually quieting down. Han Qiusheng glanced at Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang, then looked at the remaining 8 disciples. He asked in a deep voice, Only Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang are participating. 3 people are required to participate in the Dragon Mountain tournament. Who else is willing to step forward? The disciples looked at each other, their faces full of hesitation. After a while, no one took the initiative to step forward. Han Qiusheng frowned and asked in a deep voice, "Only 2 disciples are participating? Isn't this letting the Tianjian sect laugh at our storm hall for having no one?" The disciples' faces were full of shame. In their hearts, they hated the Tianjian sect even more. Nai Hao bowed to Han Qiusheng and said in a serious tone, reporting to Deacon Han, "It's not that we are cowards. It's just that the Tianjian sect is despicable and shameless. They caught us unprepared. Moreover, this Dragon Mountain tournament is very important. Not only is it related to the ownership of Dragon Mountain, but it is also related to the face and honor of our sect. We admit that we are no match for a Tongxian expert, so we don't dare to rashly ask for a fight. If we lose the tournament, not only will we lose Dragon Mountain, but we will also bring shame to our sect." Nai Hao's words were reasonable. They were also the thoughts of the other disciples. Everyone nodded in agreement and echoed what he said. Du Wu frowned and thought for a moment, then probed Han Qiusheng. "Brother Han, since the Tianjian sect is despicable and shameless, why don't we ask the sect master for permission to transfer 1 or 2 disciples from the inner sect to the Storm Hall to represent our sect?" Du Wu's proposal immediately received the approval of several disciples. Han Qiusheng thought for a moment, then shook his head and rejected the idea. Although the Tianjian sect is despicable and sinister, those 3 disciples are indeed new disciples. If they do this, our sect has nothing to say. However, if we let our inner sect disciples pretend to be outer sect disciples and represent our sect in the tournament, we will definitely be ridiculed by the Tianjian sect. They might even use this to make an issue out of it. We can't do this. Du Wu asked anxiously, "Then what should we do? Are we really going to let Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang fight the 3 genius disciples of the Tianjian sect? The 3 of them are at the 2nd or 3rd level of the Tongxian stage. The strongest, Hang Chen, is said to have reached the 5th level of the Tongxian stage." Earlier, Han Qiusheng did not explain the true strength of the Tianjian sect disciples. Now that everyone heard that there was a 5th-level Tongxian stage expert among the 3 disciples of the Tianjian sect, they were all aghast. There's actually a 5th-level Tongxian stage expert? Heavens! How are they going to fight? With Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang's strength, I'm afraid they won't even be able to block one of their moves, right? A 5th-level Tongxian stage expert is actually still in the outer sect. The Tianjian sect is really shameless to the extreme. Lu Mingyang and Ji Tianxing are both at the 1st level of the Tongxian stage. They will definitely lose this battle. Dragon Mountain will be lost again. Not only were the disciples dispirited, but even Lu Mingyang's expression was unsightly and his heart was filled with worry. Only Ji Tianxing's expression did not change. His demeanor was still calm and composed. He cupped his fists and bowed to Han Qiusheng. His voice was sonorous and powerful as he said, "Deacon Han, the Tianjian sect is despicable and shameless, but our sect can't learn from them. We have to act openly and above board. Please rest assured, Deacon Han. Although the 3 disciples of the Tianjian sect are strong, I'm not afraid. Even if I have to fight the 3 of them alone, I'm sure I can win." Chapter 182. Hearing Ji Tianxing's words that were filled with confidence, the expressions of the disciples became somewhat complicated. If it were before, they would have snorted disdainfully and ridiculed him on the spot. Although he had shown his talent in alchemy, array, and martial arts, making the disciples admire him. However, his words were still a little too arrogant in the ears of the crowd. Several disciples frowned, shook their heads, and discussed in low voices. "Even if Ji Tianxing's talent is outstanding and I admire him, isn't he too arrogant? That's right. He just broke through to the Tongxian realm and can't even defeat experts in the 2nd or 3rd stage of the Tongxian realm. How can he defeat an expert in the 5th stage of the Tongxian realm? Even if he is a genius and can defeat experts in the 2nd or 3rd stage of the Tongxian realm with his strength in the 1st stage of the Tongxian realm, he can't defeat experts in the 5th stage of the Tongxian realm. Defeat opponents in the 4th stage of the Tongxian realm? I have never heard of such a thing. If he can really do it, it will be a miracle. Haha, create a miracle? How can it be so easy? Unless he is a super genius like senior sister Yun Yaro. Ji Tianxing ignored the crowd's discussion and strange gazes and calmly looked at Han Qiusheng. Han Qiusheng pondered for a moment and raised his hand to signal for everyone to be quiet. With a solemn expression, he solemnly announced the final decision. I now announce that Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang will represent our sect in this Longshan tournament. Now that things have come to this, with the enemy in front of us, please put down your doubts and prejudices and work together to face this challenge. When the disciples heard this, their expressions became unnatural and their eyes revealed shame and self-blame. Indeed, the disciples of the Tianjian sect had already arrived and were living in the outer sect's pine courtyard. They were waiting to see the Fengyun courtyard make a fool of themselves. They didn't dare to stand up and fight for the sect, but they still questioned and ridiculed Ji Tianxing. This kind of behavior was despised the most. Han Qiusheng looked at Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang with a solemn expression. Ji Tianxing, Lu Mingyang, as long as you do your best and have a clear conscience, everything will be fine. No matter what the final result is, the fact that you were able to step forward at the critical moment is the pride of our sect. I am proud of all of you. The other 8 disciples suddenly looked solemn. They stared at Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang with complicated eyes. Without a doubt, the victory of the Dragon Mountain competition, the ownership of the Dragon Mountain, and the glory of the sect were all in their hand. All right, this matter is decided. Everyone, you may leave. After Han Qiusheng announced the results, he waved his hand, indicating for everyone to withdraw. Several disciples left the main hall one after another, and walked into the courtyard in 2s and 3s. They were still discussing in low voices. Ji Tianxing also walked out of the hall and walked towards his own room. At this time, Lu Mingyang followed him and stopped him under the big banyan tree in the courtyard. Ji Tianxing, wait a minute. Ji Tianxing stopped and turned to look at Lu Mingyang. He said expressionlessly, "What's the matter?" Lu Mingyang's expression was a little complicated. After hesitating for a moment, he said seriously, "There are some things that I want to talk to you about." Hearing this, Ji Tianxing couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "What is there to talk about between us?" Lu Mingyang was a little embarrassed, but he was already mentally prepared. He said without changing his expression, "That's right. We are like fire and water. There is indeed nothing to talk about. But that's between us. There will be plenty of opportunities to settle our grudges in the future. Now that the disciples of the Tianjian sect are here, and the enemy is in front of us, I think we should put aside our prejudices and unite as one." Ji Tianxing was still expressionless. He asked, "And then?" Lu Mingyang said seriously, "Only the 2 of us from our sect are participating in the competition. The Tianjian sect has 3 people, and they are all stronger than us. Especially that Hang Chen. He can crush the 2 of us with one hand. No matter what, we can't win. When the time comes, we will lose miserably and become a laughingstock. We will become sinners of our sect. Everyone is well aware of this. What are you trying to say?" Ji Tianxing could see that Lu Mingyang definitely had other intentions. Sure enough, after looking around and seeing that there was no one around, Lu Mingyang lowered his voice and said, "Ji Tianxing, if you don't want to become a laughingstock and become a sinner who will lose the honor of Dragon Mountain and the sect, then you might as well listen to my advice. Let's go find the outer sect elders and ask Elder Chu to think of a way to give us some powerful equipment or elixirs that can quickly increase our strength. Right now, the 2 of us are the hope of the outer sect. The outcome of this competition and the sect's honor and disgrace all depend on us. We can take this opportunity to ask Elder Chu for help. He will definitely understand and will not refuse." After saying that, Lu Mingyang stared at Ji Tianxing with a burning gaze. His eyes contained expectations. He believed that Ji Tianxing would definitely not let go of such an excellent opportunity to ask for treasures and resources from the sect in a justifiable manner. However, Ji Tianxing had a playful smile on his face, and his tone was somewhat mocking. He, as expected of the crown prince of Changfeng Nation. Born in the royal family, you are born to be good at taking advantage of others. taking this opportunity to ask Elder Chu for treasures. What's the difference between this and taking advantage of the situation? Seeing Lu Mingyang's unnatural expression, he shouted in a deep voice, Lu Mingyang, if you want to take advantage of the situation, then go ahead. No one will stop you. But I will never do such a thing, and I don't need it at all. Even if you are afraid of death, I can finish the competition alone. I can still take back Dragon Mountain and save the sect's face. After leaving these two sentences, Ji Tianxing turned around and was about to leave. Looking at his back, Lu Mingyang was so angry that his face turned cold. He clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles cracked. Ji Tianxing, you are too arrogant. You will definitely regret it. Ji Tianxing ignored him. He stepped to the door and was about to enter the room. But at this moment, Yimo suddenly ran into the yard from the gate. He shouted with a bad expression, "Brothers, come out quickly. Something happened." Hearing Yimo's shout, those disciples who had just returned to their rooms opened their doors and rushed out. Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang also turned around to look at Yimo. They did not know what had happened. Soon, 6 or 7 disciples came to the yard. They surrounded Yimo and asked him what had happened. Yimo hurriedly explained, "Just now I passed by the outer court square and saw many outer court disciples gathered there. I thought something had happened, so I went closer to take a look. It turned out that 3 disciples of the Tianjian sect went to the square early in the morning to practice swordsmanship, which attracted many disciples' attention." Speaking of this, he was a little indignant. He shouted angrily in a low voice, "The disciples of the Tianjian sect have gone too far. They just entered our sect today, but they practiced martial arts in the square in public. And they even put on a posture of pointing at the world. This is definitely a show of strength and a naked provocation to our Fengyun courtyard." Chapter 183. These 3 Tianjian sect disciples actually dared to be so arrogant on their first day at the Sky Pillar sect. The Tempest courtyard was the face of the outer sect. The actions of these 3 Tianjian sect disciples were undoubtedly provoking the Tempest courtyard. As this matter concerned the honor of the Tempest courtyard, several disciples were filled with righteous indignation and decided to go to the square to take a look. Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang were the backbone of the Tempest courtyard. Several disciples clustered around them and rushed to the outer sect square. Before long, everyone arrived at the outer sect square. While still at the edge of the square, Ji Tianxing and the others saw that nearly 200 outer sect disciples had gathered in the center of the square. They were crowded in a circle. There was an empty space in the middle of the crowd that was about 20 meters in radius. When Ji Tianxing and the others arrived at the center of the square, they saw 3 young men in green robes standing on the empty ground. The robes of these 3 people were different from the robes of the Sky Pillar sect's outer sect disciples. There was a symbol of a treasured sword embroidered on their chests. Obviously, these 3 people were the disciples sent by the Tianjian sect to the Sky Pillar sect for an exchange. 2 of them were elegant. They looked talented and exuded a confident and vigorous aura. The 2 of them were holding treasured swords in their hands and displaying sword techniques. They constantly swung their swords, causing dazzling cold light to fill the sky. The smooth and flowing sword techniques, the gorgeous and dazzling sword light, and the 2 people's clothes fluttering in the wind, caused many outer sect disciples to applaud and cheer. Most of the outer sect disciples didn't know about the Dragon Mountain tournament. They only knew that the geniuses of the Tianjian sect had come to the Sky Pillar sect for an exchange and everyone was learning from each other. Seeing that the 2 Tianjian sect disciples were indeed extraordinary. Their attainments in the Tao of the sword were superb, and they had the demeanor of experts. Naturally, their hearts swayed and they were full of admiration. Only a small number of disciples realized that something was wrong. They looked at the 2 disciples of the Heavenly Sword sect coldly and whispered to each other in low voices. Of the 3 disciples of the Heavenly Sword sect, 2 of them were swinging their swords and sparring with each other. The 3rd person stood proudly in the center of the square and was the most eye-catching. This person had a tall and robust figure. He had a pair of large copper bell eyes, dark red skin, and his entire body emanated an unruly and overbearing aura. He carried a huge blood-colored heavy sword on his back, his arms crossed in front of his chest, and he stood there with an arrogant expression. That blood-red heavy sword was about 1.5 meters long and as wide as a bench. Just from its appearance, one could tell that it was extraordinarily powerful and had a murderous aura. This person did not display any sword techniques, nor did he speak. In fact, he didn't even have the interest to look at the others. His attitude was cold and arrogant. Ji Tianxing, Lu Mingyang, and the others immediately guessed that this person was most likely Hang Chen, a fifth-layer Tongxian realm genius. A moment later, the two disciples who were sparring stopped at the same time. The two of them put away their swords and bowed to the surrounding disciples. They smiled and said, "I'm Ran Donglai. Please excuse my incompetence. I'm Yin Feiyang. Please excuse me." The two of them exchanged some pleasantries and then put their swords back into the scabbard on their backs. Ran Donglai smiled and said, "Senior brothers and sisters, what Senior Brother Yin and I displayed just now was one of our sect's unique sword techniques, the 7 killing swordsmanship. This time, Senior Brother Yin, Senior Brother Hang, and I are here to exchange pointers under the orders of our sect. We're here to visit the top sect in Tianchen territory and exchange pointers with our senior brothers and sisters of the 1,000-year-old ancient sect. Senior Brother Yin and I are not talented. We've only been in the sect for 2 months, and we've barely learned the 7 killing swordsmanship. Please give us some pointers." Although Ran Donglai said that he wanted everyone to give him pointers, his tone and posture were very modest and polite. However, Ji Tianxing and the others could see that Ran Donglai's eyes contained a hint of arrogance. He and Yin Feiyang had practiced the 7 killing swordsmanship, but their main purpose was not to exchange pointers with the outer disciples. The surrounding disciples were basically all below LV7 true element realm. Who was qualified to give Ran Donglai and Yin Feiyang pointers? Sure enough, after hearing Ran Donglai's words, the surrounding disciples began to discuss among themselves. They are indeed the genius disciples of the Tianjian sect. They have the demeanor of a disciple of a big sect. The two senior brothers' swordsmanship is so exquisite, and their attitudes are so modest. It's really admirable. Senior Brother Ran is too modest. Your attainments in sword techniques are far beyond our reach. We can't wait to admire you. Who can give you pointers? Most of the disciples were impressed by Ran Donglai and Yin Feiyang's charm. They felt that not only were their strength profound, their swordsmanship exquisite, but they were also very modest and kind. However, there were also a few disciples who were secretly discussing. These two disciples were obviously showing off. Yin Feiyang looked at the crowd with a smile. After waiting for a while and seeing that no one came forward to exchange pointers, he said, "Senior brothers and sisters, we're here mainly to exchange pointers with your sect's disciples and improve the harmony and friendship between our two sects. Since no one wants to exchange pointers to avoid hurting the harmony, why don't we speak freely and exchange our insights on martial arts? I'm a few years older than all of you. If you have any questions about your cultivation, why don't you tell me? Perhaps I can help you." Hearing this, the numerous disciples immediately understood that Yin Feiyang wanted to point them in the right direction. Many disciples of the White Dew Institute and the Jiangliu Institute immediately opened their mouths to ask questions. They wanted to get some pointers from Yin Feiyang. Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai also didn't refuse anyone. They answered everyone's questions one by one and won the gratitude of many disciples. In just a short while, the two of them had become closer to many disciples and appeared to be on good terms. Seeing this scene, the disciples of the Wind Cloud Institute all had cold faces and their eyes surged with anger. At this moment, a disciple suddenly saw Ji Tianxing and the others and immediately shouted, "Hey, aren't those the senior brothers of the Wind Cloud Institute? Everyone, look, the senior brothers of the Wind Cloud Institute are here." After the voice spread out, many disciples turned their heads to look at Ji Tianxing and the others with faces full of expectation. The 10 disciples of the Wind Cloud Institute were the most outstanding geniuses of the Sky Pillar sect's outer sect. Many outer sect disciples were guessing who would be stronger in the exchange of pointers between their own sect's geniuses and the Tianjian sect's disciples. Ji Tianxing, Lu Mingyang, and the others immediately became the focus of everyone's attention. Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai also turned their heads to look at Ji Tianxing and the others and revealed a faint smile. Even the always cold and arrogant Hang Chen cast an indifferent glance at Ji Tianxing and the others. Ji Tianxing led Lu Mingyang and the others through the crowd of onlookers and walked towards Hang Chen's group of 3 in the middle of the square. Since they had made an appearance, they should go over and greet the disciples of the Tianjian sect. They couldn't weaken the reputation of the Wind Cloud Institute. Ji Tianxing walked to the middle of the square and expressionlessly looked at Yin Feiyang. He asked, "Senior brother Yin Feiyang, I have a question to ask. If someone were to steal the limelight in front of you and display their slight skill in front of an expert, how would you respond?" Chapter 184. Ji Tianxing's words silenced the entire square. Nearly 200 outer sect disciples revealed complicated expressions as they silently stared at him. No one was stupid. Everyone could tell that Ji Tianxing was implying that Yin Feiyang and the other 2 were trying to steal the limelight and display their slight skills in front of an expert. Many disciples agreed with Ji Tianxing's words. They felt that Yin Feiyang and the other 2 were being too ostentatious. But there were also a few disciples who were confused and doubtful. They thought to themselves, why is the senior brother of the Tempest Hall so angry? The 3 Tianjian sect disciples naturally understood Ji Tianxing's meaning. Their expressions immediately changed and their smiles disappeared. Yin Feiyang calmly looked at Ji Tianxing and cupped his hands. "May I ask how I should address you, brother?" Ji Tianxing of the Tempest Hall. Yin Feiyang faintly smiled. "Junior brother Ji's words are too serious. The 3 of us have come under the orders of our master to exchange and learn from your noble sect's disciples. We originally wanted to visit you at the Tempest Hall and exchange our insights on the martial Tao with you. Unfortunately, you were all busy cultivating and couldn't be seen. We didn't want to disturb you, so we could only exchange pointers." Although Yin Feiyang's words were dignified and even sounded a little aggrieved. But Ji Tianxing and the others could tell that Yin Feiyang was clearly mocking them for being afraid to fight. At this time, Ran Donglai also cupped his hands towards Ji Tianxing and explained, "Senior brother Yin and I are both obsessed with the Tao of the sword. Apart from meditating and cultivating, we practice our sword techniques. But we didn't expect that after exchanging a few moves, we would attract so many junior brothers and sisters to watch. We didn't want to cause any misunderstandings, but our junior brothers and sisters were too enthusiastic. They all requested us to display a few more moves. As the saying goes, the guest follows the host's wishes. We could only comply and continue to display the 7 murders sword technique. Sigh, we didn't expect to cause a misunderstanding with junior brother Ji. We were rude." After speaking, Ran Donglai and Yin Feiyang bowed towards Ji Tianxing and the others to express their apology. But how could Ji Tianxing believe their nonsense? "You two like to spar with each other. Can't you spar in Pine Tree Courtyard? Why did they have to come to the outer sanctum square to spar? Wasn't this clearly for the outer sect disciples to see?" However, Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai kept a low profile and did a good job on the surface, making it difficult for Ji Tianxing to flare up. Many of the spectating disciples still didn't understand the situation and thought that he was making a big fuss over nothing. It was even to the extent that some people were discussing in secret and felt wronged for Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai. Ji Tianxing frowned slightly and expressionlessly said to Yin Feiyang and the other 2, "If the 2 of you like to spar, you can practice in the Green Pine Courtyard. Although the disciples of our sect are slow-witted, they are taught by the deacons of the various courtyards. There is no need to trouble the 2 of you to guide them. Also, the 2 of you don't have to be in such a hurry to spar with the disciples of our academy. The Dragon Mountain tournament will be held in 7 days. At that time, we'll meet in the arena. Wouldn't that be simpler and clearer?" Hearing the words Dragon Mountain tournament, many disciples were startled and didn't understand what was going on. Everyone immediately began discussing in low voices. Some disciples who had heard of the Dragon Mountain tournament immediately explained it to others. As a result, many disciples quickly understood the reason and meaning of the Dragon Mountain tournament. Everyone's gaze towards Yin Feiyang and the other 2 became strange. Even the disciples who felt wronged for Yin Feiyang and the other 2 were filled with shame and self-blame. Only now did they know that Yin Feiyang and the other two were modest on the surface, but in reality, they were representing the Tianjian sect to fight for Dragon Mountain against the Sky Pillar sect. The resources produced by Dragon Mountain were supposed to be used by the outer sect disciples for cultivation. As a result, Yin Feiyang and the other two were the Avilders who stole their resources. How could they still feel close to them? In a short period of time, the mentality of the nearly 200 disciples in the square had changed. Many people had a common enemy and were glaring angrily at Yin Feiyang and the other two. They also had expectations and support for Ji Tianxing and the others. Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai looked at each other. They both felt that Ji Tianxing was a difficult person to deal with. The two of them had put on a flawless front, but Ji Tianxing had torn apart their pretense, making the atmosphere very awkward. Finally, the silent and arrogant Hang Chen stepped in front of Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai. Among the three disciples, it was clear that Hang Chen was the leader. Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai knew that he was about to speak and immediately took half a step back. Hang Chen looked at Ji Tianxing indifferently and expressionlessly asked, "Junior Martial Brother Ji, it seems that you are one of the candidates for the Dragon Mountain tournament." Ji Tianxing's expression didn't change as he said, "That's right." Hang Chen nodded and the corner of his mouth hooked up in a playful smile. "Since Junior Martial Brother Ji is so unreasonable, then we won't disturb you for the next few days. However, I have to remind Junior Martial Brother Ji that my heavy sword of the setting sun weighs more than 900 pounds. It is an indestructible divine weapon. Junior Martial Brother Ji, you should think of a way to get a peerless armor to wear so that you won't be injured by my heavy sword of the setting sun during the Dragon Mountain tournament. At that time, if the harmony between the two sects is damaged because of this, then I don't want that to happen." Finished speaking, he reached out and touched the hilt of the setting sun heavy sword. Under the sunlight, the thick and broad blade shined with a faint red light. This was definitely Hang Chen's threat, although his tone was calm and his words didn't carry the slightest bit of anger. His condescending attitude and arrogant and disdainful eyes made the people of the Wind Cloud Hall feel a strong sense of contempt. The expressions of the Wind Cloud Hall disciples changed as they angrily glared at Hang Chen. Ji Tianxing's expression was still calm as he indifferently said, "Many thanks for Senior Martial Brother Hang Chen's reminder. I won't see you off." Hang Chen's eyes flashed with a cold smile as he led Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai away. After a while, the three of them passed through the crowd and left the square, returning to Pine Tree Courtyard. The people of the Wind Cloud Hall stood in the square and looked at the backs of Hang Chen's group as they left. Their faces were filled with anger. Too much. The disciples of the Tianjian sect are actually so arrogant. Especially Hang Chen, he actually dared to threaten our sect's disciples in public. He's simply too arrogant. Preposterous. The disciples of the Tianjian sect came to our sect, but not only did they not know how to restrain themselves, they even dared to swagger through the streets. I'm so angry. Sigh, Hang Chen is an expert at the 5th stage of the profound comprehension stage after all. When the day of the tournament comes, Ji Tianxing will probably suffer a calamity. Don't say such discouraging words. No matter what, we can't weaken the sect's prestige. The disciples were filled with righteous indignation, but they also felt deeply helpless. Even if they saw Hang Chen's group strut around, they didn't have enough strength to defeat Hang Chen's group on the spot and show off the sect's prestige. Ji Tianxing glanced at the people around him and calmly said, "Everyone, don't mind it. Let's all go back." After saying that, he was about to lead the crowd out of the square. At this time, many disciples in the square shouted loudly, "Senior Martial Brother Ji Tianxing, you must defeat the people of the Tianjian sect in the Dragon Mountain tournament. Senior Martial Brother Ji, you must take back Dragon Mountain for everyone." Chapter 185. Hang Chen's group of 3 was walking on a tree-lined path back to Pine Courtyard. Hang Chen walked in front with Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai following behind him. Their expressions were somewhat gloomy. Ran Donglai frowned and couldn't help but complain, "Ari, I already said that we would definitely incur the wrath of the crowd if we brazenly ran to the plaza to practice the sword. I don't know what Deacon Qi is thinking. He clearly knows that we will become the target of public criticism, yet he still wants us to do this." Although Yin Feiyang didn't understand, he still smiled and advised, "Junior brother Ran, Lord Deacon definitely has his reasons for wanting us to do this. Don't complain." Hang Chen also said in a low voice, "For countless years, our sect has never sent a disciple to the Sky Pillar sect. In this year's Dragon Mountain tournament, the sect master sent us to the Sky Pillar sect to exchange knowledge. What do we have to exchange knowledge with those trash from the Tempest Courtyard? The sect master must have a deeper meaning for making such an arrangement. We don't need to delve into it. We just need to follow orders. Wait until the Dragon Mountain tournament. We will beat up those trash from the Tempest Courtyard and complete our mission." Ran Donglai and Yin Feiyang both nodded with sneers on their faces. After everyone from the Tempest Courtyard returned, they all returned to their rooms. Not long after Ji Tianxing entered his room, there was a knock on the door. He quickly opened the door and saw that the person knocking was Han Qiusheng. "Deacon Han? Why have you come?" Under normal circumstances, if Han Qiusheng had something to do, he would ring the bell and gather everyone in the main hall. Ji Tianxing didn't expect that Han Qiusheng would personally come to find him. Han Qiusheng didn't enter the room and nodded. "Ji Tianxing, come with me. Elder Chu wants to see you." "Elder Chu wants to see us?" Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows. He immediately guessed that the outer sect elder wanted to see him and Lu Mingyang. It was most likely because of the Dragon Mountain tournament. Thus, he followed Han Qiusheng out of the Tempest Courtyard. Lu Mingyang was already waiting at the entrance. The two followed Han Qiusheng to the palace behind the Tempest Courtyard. That palace was the outer sect's exclusive treasury, used to store all kinds of weapons, equipment, refining materials, medicinal herbs, and so on. That treasury was a forbidden area, and there were many guards guarding it. Normally, no one dared to approach it. Han Qiusheng led the two of them to the entrance of the treasury. The two of them saw the outer sect elder, Chu Huaishan, standing there waiting for them. "Elder Chu, the two disciples have arrived. This subordinate will take his leave." Han Qiusheng saluted Chu Huaishan, then turned and left. Chu Huaishan looked at Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang with a kind smile. "You two are not bad. Even though you knew that the Tianjian sect's disciples were powerful, you were still willing to step forward and fight for the Tianjian sect." Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang quickly saluted and said a few modest words. Chu Huaishan nodded and said in a serious tone, "As the saying goes, if a worker wants to do a good job, he must first sharpen his tools. If a martial artist wants to display his strongest combat strength, he must be equipped with good weapons. The reason I called you here today is to let you choose 2 suitable weapons and equipment from the treasury. Only then will you be able to make a name for the Tianjian sect in the large competition." Hearing this, Ji Tianxing's reaction was flat, but Lu Mingyang was full of joy and excitement. His eyes were shining. Previously, he had planned to drag Ji Tianxing along with him to ask Elder Chu for treasures and weapons. Who would have known that Elder Chu had already planned to do this and had even taken the initiative to bring it up? How could Lu Mingyang not be excited? Afterwards, Chu Huaishan led Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang into the treasury. The first floor was a spacious hall filled with cabinets for medicinal herbs and refining materials. The weapons and equipment were stored on the second floor. They were arranged in rows on shelves and even hung on the walls. After entering the armory on the second floor, Chu Huaishan stopped at the door and said with a smile, "Okay, I'll give you an hour to choose 2 suitable weapons and equipment." Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang bowed and thanked Chu Huaishan, then walked into the treasury. The two of them shuttled through the rows of shelves, their eyes constantly scanning the various weapons and equipment as they carefully selected. The weapons and equipment in this treasury included knives, spears, swords, halberds, axes, bows, hooks, and tridents. In addition to the various weapons, there were all kinds of defensive equipment such as heavy armor, light armor, chain armor, leather armor, and soft armor. There were even hidden weapons such as throwing knives, poison needles, darts, and so on. Although most of the weapons and equipment were of the black level, they were for the use of ordinary disciples. However, there were also some black level, mid-grade, and a few black level, upper-grade weapons and equipment, which were only used to reward disciples who had made great contributions. Chu Huaishan personally brought Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang to choose the equipment. With such special privileges, of course they could choose whatever they wanted. The higher the quality, the better. Ji Tianxing was relatively calm. He didn't look at the swords and weapons, only choosing the appropriate armor. After all, the ice-hornless armor he wore before had been damaged in the process of fighting with the witch. Lu Mingyang, on the other hand, was flushed with excitement. Looking at the dazzling array of weapons and equipment, he was already dazzled. One moment, he saw that the sword was good, the next moment, he saw that the spear was very strong, and after a while, he saw a set of armor. In short, tens of thousands of weapons and equipment dazzled him. As long as it was of the black level, he wanted it. Unknowingly, an hour had passed. Ji Tianxing walked out of the treasury first and returned to the door. He bowed to Chu Huaishan and said, "Elder Chu, this disciple has finished choosing." Chu Huaishan saw that he was holding a set of dark golden soft armor in his hand and couldn't help but nod. "Well, you have a good eye. This set of golden sun soft armor is of the black level, high grade. It contains the qi of gang metal. Not only is its defense strong, but it can also refine the warrior's true essence. However, Ji Tianxing, are you sure you only want a set of soft armor and not a sword?" Ji Tianxing smiled and explained, "No need. This disciple already has a sword and is used to it." Chu Huaishan nodded and didn't try to persuade him again. At this time, Lu Mingyang walked out and just happened to hear Ji Tianxing's words. He couldn't help but curl his lips and say, "Ji Tianxing, the 3 disciples of the Tianjian sect are very strong. If you don't choose a high-grade sword, how can you defeat them? He, or is it because you're certain that we'll lose without a doubt, so you've decided not to pick a weapon?" Hearing Lu Mingyang's voice, Ji Tianxing and Chu Huaishan both turned to look at him. Seeing Lu Mingyang's appearance, the two of them suddenly became a little strange. They saw that Lu Mingyang had a sword on his back, a bow at his waist, a set of armor in his left hand, a golden helmet in his right, and even a pair of combat boots on his feet. These few pieces of equipment, without exception, were all black grade upper grade, the best equipment in the treasury. Chu Huaishan's mouth twitched, and he said unhappily, "You little brat. Are you trying to empty the treasury?" Ji Tianxing saw Lu Mingyang's funny appearance and couldn't help but want to laugh. He said in a mocking tone, "Lu Mingyang, you chose so many pieces of equipment. Are you trying to wrap yourself up like a dumpling? Are you nervous and guilty? Are you so scared that you want to back out?" Lu Mingyang glared at him angrily and said in a low voice, "How can I back out? I am actively preparing for the war and striving to win honor for the sect." Chapter 186. Although Lu Mingyang tried his best to hide it, Ji Tianxing and Chu Huaishan could see that he was filled with fear. It was precisely because of fear and trepidation that he chose so many profound armaments. He wished he could arm himself to the teeth and protect himself in all aspects. In the end, Lu Mingyang did not get what he wanted. Under Chu Huaishan's orders, he had no choice but to put the profound level weapons back, leaving only a sword and a set of armor. After all, before entering the treasury, Chu Huaishan had said that they could choose 2 pieces of equipment. After walking out of the treasury, the 3 of them stood at the entrance. Chu Huaishan said earnestly, "These few days, you have to work hard in your cultivation and do your best to improve your strength in preparation for the large competition." Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang nodded to show that they understood. Then they bid farewell to Chu Huaishan and left the treasury. On the way back to the storm courtyard, Ji Tianxing walked in front, and Lu Mingyang followed behind him unhurriedly. Looking at Ji Tianxing's back, Lu Mingyang's eyes flashed with a trace of a sneer. He was silently scheming in his heart. "Humph. Damn Ji Tianxing, I'll let you be arrogant for a few days. After the large competition, you'll be crying. Although I can't defeat Hang Chen and Yin Feiyang, I'm about to reach LV2 of the Tongxian realm. It should be no problem for me to defeat the weakest Ran Donglai. When the large competition begins, I'll defeat Ran Donglai first and win. I'll leave Yin Feiyang and Hang Chen to you. You'll definitely lose. In this way, even if our sect loses and loses Dragon Mountain, I'll be the hero of our victory, and you'll be the sinner of the large competition." Lu Mingyang had made up his mind to use this large competition to become famous and make Ji Tianxing the sinner of the outer sect. He would be too ashamed to face anyone in the future. After returning to the storm courtyard, Lu Mingyang entered the secret chamber and could not wait to cultivate in seclusion, striving to reach LV2 of the Tongxian realm. Ji Tianxing did not waste any time and entered the secret chamber to cultivate. In the secret chamber of Pine Courtyard, Hang Chen stood in the corner with his arms crossed. His expression was indifferent, as if he was silently waiting for something. Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai were huddled together, discussing in low voices. At this moment, the door to the secret chamber opened, and a thin middle-aged man with a goatee walked in. Seeing this person, Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai stopped their discussion and hurriedly bowed respectfully. "Deacon Qi, you've returned." "Greetings, Deacon Qi." Only Hang Chen didn't bow. He looked at Deacon Qi and asked, "Deacon Qi, you asked us to wait in the secret room. Is there something important?" Deacon Qi, who was dressed in a black robe, had a gloomy temperament. His long and narrow eyes flashed with a sharp light. He nodded at Hang Chen and said in a low voice, "This king has summoned all of you here for an important matter. All of you have done well today. You have successfully attracted the attention of the outer sect disciples. In the next few days, the three of you will still have to attract the attention of the outer court disciples. Of course, after today's events, the Sky Pillar sect's disciples seem to be somewhat disgusted with you. Therefore, you have to change the location and use a different method to attract their attention. As for the specifics, you don't need this king to give you pointers, right?" Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai were somewhat troubled. They hesitated and didn't speak. Only Hang Chen nodded. "We understand. However, what's the point of doing this? Please dispel our doubts, Deacon Qi." Deacon Qi stroked his goatee and revealed an unfathomable smile. "The sect naturally arranged for us to come to the Sky Pillar sect for a profound reason. It is also for the sect's 1,000-year-old cause. As for your mission, it is to attract the attention of the outer court disciples so that they won't have time to pay attention to this king. This will make it easier for this king to act." Hearing this, Yin Feiyang revealed a puzzled expression and asked expectantly, "Dare I ask Deacon Qi, after we entered the Sky Pillar sect, you didn't appear for an entire day. I wonder if you..." Deacon Qi clearly wouldn't reveal the specific actions and goals. He only smiled and said, "Hehe, we came to the Sky Pillar sect to exchange knowledge. This king has come to the 1,000-year-old ancient sect and admires its prestige. Of course, I have to walk around the sect and admire the Sky Pillar sect's scenery and spirit veins. However, don't ask too much about this matter. There's no benefit in knowing. This king will do his best to complete the mission given by the sect master. You also have to do your best to complete your mission." Hang Chen nodded and didn't say anything. His eyes revealed a thoughtful expression. Yin Feiyang and Ran Donglai didn't understand. Their eyes were still puzzled, but they didn't dare to ask. After a moment of silence, Deacon Qi continued, "Now that we are in the Sky Pillar sect, you have to be careful. Try not to have any conflicts with the Sky Pillar sect disciples. Even if you have to endure for a while, as long as you can win the tournament and defend Dragon Mountain for the sect, it will be a great contribution. No matter what, you have to win this Dragon Mountain tournament." Hearing his solemn and determined tone, Ran Donglai couldn't help but ask, "Deacon Qi, is Dragon Mountain really that important? Even if there are spirit herb gardens on Dragon Mountain and/or veins below, there are many similar treasures in the Star Ancient realm. Why is the sect so determined to win?" Deacon Qi glanced at him, then looked at Yin Feiyang and Hang Chen. Seeing that the three of them were puzzled, he had to explain, "Listen carefully. This king can tell you, but this is a secret of the sect. You can't leak it out. In the 3 years that the sect has occupied Dragon Mountain, we have developed and excavated Dragon Mountain to the extreme. We have seized almost 80% of the resources in Dragon Mountain. 2 months ago, our sect's guest elder, Huang Fu, found the aura of the Heaven Origin formation in the deepest part of Dragon Mountain. After the exploration of guest Huang Fu and the leader, they finally found a Heaven's Origin array from 1,000 years ago in the deepest part of the Dragon Mountain. In that Heaven Origin formation, there is a mysterious ancient tomb. It is very grand and majestic. That ancient tomb is so majestic, and it is protected by the Heaven Origin Formation. It must be the tomb of an expert from 1,000 years ago. There must be rare treasures in it, and there might even be the martial arts inheritance of an expert. If the sect wants to grow and dominate the Tianchen region, not only will we need endless cultivation resources, but we also need to find all kinds of powerful martial arts inheritances and secret technique. Therefore, the sect master is determined to win that ancient tomb. Hearing this, Hang Chen, Yin Feiyang, and Yin Feiyang were surprised, and their eyes were filled with anticipation. Deacon Qi said in a serious tone, "Unfortunately, the protective formation of that ancient tomb is too profound. Even with Huangfu's talent, he can't break it in 2 months. You can't lose the tournament, and the sect can't return Dragon Mountain to the Sky-bearing sect. Otherwise, that ancient tomb of an expert will belong to the Sky-bearing sect. Do you understand?"